Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Are we live now? I'm going to ask everybody to take their seats, get ready. Welcome to the September Finance Economic Resiliency Committee. Happy Friday. We have some beautiful weather here. Excited for the weekend. From a FERC perspective, we are approaching the end of our budget season, so exciting times. We've been incredibly busy. Appreciate everybody that has been part of this process. So let's get today kicked off. We're still waiting for another commissioner to come in, so I want to just take some things where they're more updating wise. Mr. CFO, I'm going to hand it over to you and the city attorney to kick us off here, and then we'll talk about some things that we get out of the way first.
Okay, I think, do we have some meeting notes or records that we read in the record first? And then I have a couple notes too.
Sure. Good morning. Today's meeting of the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee has been scheduled in a hybrid format with a quorum of the committee physically present and the remaining members, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. In order to participate in today's meeting virtually, members of the public may dial 1-888-475-4499 toll-free and enter the webinar ID, which is 863-6059-5462 #, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 863-6059-5462. Any individual wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon if they are using the Zoom app, or dial *9 if you are participating by phone.
Thank you. Two notes. Number NB13 is deferred. NB1 has a time certain of 12 noon. Thank you, Chair. That's the only notes I have.
Excellent. Why don't we get started? Can we have an update? Let's get to the one for an update on the grant status of the grant programs.
Chair, that would be NB9. Discuss steps that could be taken to enhance the identification of grant opportunities for the city of Miami Beach. NB9. And we have Chris Dobbins, our Grants Division Director, to provide an update. This should be a discussion item. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Crystal Dobbins, Grants Management Division Director. Today I'm here to discuss the recommendation from the City Administration regarding our approach to securing grant opportunities as referred to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee on July 24th at the request of the Mayor and Commissioner Laura Dominguez. The Commissioner referred this item to the committee Our city, Miami Beach, actively seeks various grants from federal, state, and local sources to support our projects and initiatives. We have established procedures for identifying these opportunities, including a thorough review of available grants and an internal coordination process to match them with our needs. Our grants team plays a crucial role in this process, staying updated on new funding sources, reviewing grant notices, and preparing comprehensive applications. To ensure we are effective in securing these grants, we engage in best practices, including conducting a needs assessment at the start of each fiscal year and continuously evaluating our grant research and application methods. We also make use of advanced tools and databases and participate in professional development opportunities. Our efforts are supported by bi-weekly internal meetings with all department directors where we review priority projects and funding opportunities. We strive to maximize external funding to enhance community projects and maintain financial stabilities. You'll see attached, we provided the listing of all of the grants we've applied for this fiscal year, totaling about $64 million. And to date, we've been awarded a little bit over $20 million.
Excellent. And those numbers tend to be pretty lumpy in terms of one year could be X amount of dollars, the other could be increased by 200%. How can we get better, right? We've done an excellent job. Excellent. Congrats to you and your team. Outline some steps where we can get better. Where's the low-hanging fruit where we say, okay, not happy maintaining the status quo. You know, we all hear about these huge amount of dollars for the federal infrastructure bills and things like that. Is that more at the county level where they're applying for it and then we look for their allocation?
So there's two things there. One of the things that Jason and I have done is increased our communication in terms of our federal and our state lobbyists. We've increased our communication with our congresswoman at the federal level in terms of when we are applying for projects. We make sure to provide to them the applications we provide for so that they can provide us things like support letters so that they can also speak on our behalf in terms of the federal funding. In terms of the state funding, it kind of depends on what the priorities are that year, to be honest with you, of those in the legislative session. We're trying to make sure that we get the necessary guidance in the things and the projects that we do apply for so that it can increase our chances of getting the funding that is out there and available. Sometimes there are dynamics where the county is going to get things that honestly we just are not going to get because they represent the entire county, whereas we're just a city that we're representing. So there are instances where they will have a leg up in terms of getting those types of funding.
And Crystal, do you work hand in hand now with our new legislative liaison?
Yes.
Peter? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. If I'll let my colleagues ask you if they want to bring anything up, but if I can have a request from you, working hand in hand with Peter, outline essentially where we've been the past couple of years, what our numbers have been, where some of those key grant allocations have come from, and also what our essential goals for the next 2 years are. You know, and how we're going to say, all right, we've gotten this in the past. We want to aim our sights on getting even better, and here's where how we plan to tackle that, and here's where our priorities are. I'll kick it over to my colleagues if they have any questions.
Yeah, quick. First of all, amazing job. How much money you guys generate with a tiny little team is really impressive, and so amazing job. And now we want more. So go figure out how to clone yourselves, and everything will be fine. No. But seriously, though, it is a remarkable job of how much money you do secure for us. My question is, you know, Miami Beach is often on the forefront of national issues, so sea level change, climate change, and resiliency issues, and innovative building opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. One of the big things that we are wrestling with as a city, as a community, is multimodal mobility. And I know the state hasn't quite figured out what to do with it yet, so there's not funding from them. And the county has different needs when it comes to that because it's much bigger. We are like a perfect test case. We're 7 miles of sand in the middle of the ocean, and people want to use their bikes or e-bikes or scooters in multiple different ways. And there's only so much we can do, but we could possibly reconfigure how to use what exists currently. So I would, if it's federal money, if it's private grants, if it's groups who are trying to do pilot test cases, I would really encourage, I don't know if there's like a newsletter that goes out of here are grants that are open this week nationally at every possible level. I don't know. I'm sure you do. But if there are any additional trees to shake to start thinking outside the box, if you're not already outside the box, which you probably are, but to try to get money for that kind of stuff. So, it's great to get grants to help defray the cost of designing First Street project or building the WAVNA Phase 2, whatever. But it's also these little bits and pieces that may not be so high on the radar, but would be huge for us because they could be selling points and, PR wins as well as improving the quality of life for our residents. Like to say Miami Beach is leading the way on X once again is great. So I just wanted to put that onto your already long list, your to-do list. So thank you for what you guys are already accomplishing.
And if I could just add to that, since I've been here, and I think Crystal, touched on that a bit, is because temporarily I've taken over, and now it's transitioning off some of those legislative responsibilities, and we now have set up monthly calls with our grants team with both our state and federal lobbyists, which we hadn't been doing before, where we're able to discuss which applications that we've submitted, so they're able to keep their ears to the ground, so they're able to push it from a lobbyist perspective. And I think that that's going to be something that we've started over the past couple of months, and I think it's going to be helpful and bear even more fruits. And we're just, by having that open line of communication with our lobbyists, they're also bringing, not, I think Crystal actually knows all the ones that they bring their attention, but that they also try to bring attention, and they're aware of all of our legislative priorities and the things we're trying to get funded.
So through the chair, if I may just ask, so federal and state lobbyists, how do we get information about the private grants, the foundation grants?
I like Crystal.
So typically with those, we have a database that we subscribe to, and that's where we're able to see some of those opportunities.
Okay,
and
so
then,
they get sent, like anytime
Yes,
something new
yes.
gets issued.
and then
from-
things like with the MVVCA, we're constantly checking. They'll also communicate with us, when they're putting out their funding opportunities. So we make sure to try to stay on top of that.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Magazine, Commissioner Dominguez is on the line. Commissioner Dominguez, please unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you. I co-sponsored this item with Mayor Minor, and for me, the thing that was very important was to make sure that we continue to find federal funding for our resiliency projects, specifically seawalls. That's something that is really important. Things, monies that can help our private citizens. We have the private property adaptation program, but that's limited and only open twice a year, and the funding is limited. And the majority of our seawalls in Miami Beach are private. And the other area that I really want to make sure that the city looks for federal funding for is arts and culture, given that the state cut the funding there. If there's any opportunity at the federal level, that would be great as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Commissioner Fernandez. Vice Mayor Fernandez. How could I forget? Question. I'm looking at the table that you provided us, and I'm seeing the match amounts when they were submitted. And how do we know which grants came through or not? Is this the list of this? We couldn't have gotten all of these.
No. That was showing all of the grants that we've submitted for this fiscal year.
And
from
how do we know
October
which
1.
ones we've actually gotten?
I can provide to you if you want to also see the ones that we received. I can provide that in a separate.
Yeah, I think that's important to find out which ones
Okay.
we've gotten. I see that you guys have been busy. I mean, you applied for, since the beginning of this year, 41 grants.
Okay.
Right? Totaling how much?
A little over $20 million.
$20 million.
Is what we've been awarded this year.
20 million have been awarded.
This year,
Right.
this fiscal year.
If we applied for about 65, and a lot of these grants are very long time, so they may be on we applied in 2024, but we don't find out until 2025. Some of them actually have, especially when you're dealing with the federal government and the state government, oftentimes it's 6 months, 12 months down the line from when application to when what we know. So that's what we track, what we applied for in a year and then what we won in a year. And they're mismatch. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Crystal. The one thing I'll highlight, and then I'll let you get back to getting money for the city. I think it would be great to look to see if we can get some sort of water transportation service, whether that be an electric ferry or something like that. You saw the issues that we had with the Poseidon ferry. I think the idea is great, but it's something that anywhere, water ferry needs to be subsidized. We saw the difficulties in doing it as a city. It'd be fabulous to find out what we do from a federal level.
Okay,
Okay, thank you so much.
thank you.
Going to move on to some IT items to get them out of here. So where I'm envisioning, we go to items 4, 14, and then we have, looks like a lot of people here for 18, so we'd like to hear those.
Thank you, Chair. NB4, referral to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee to discuss opportunities for the city administration to incorporate the use of artificial intelligence in city operations and further improve city services, including, without limitation, city permitting processes, 311 non-emergency reporting, traffic management, and public transportation to discuss a potential partnership with Miami-Dade College on AI initiatives NB4.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Frank Quintana, CIO. This was an item that was originally referred by Mayor Minor to explore the development of an AI program for the city and work with Miami-Dade College and other educational entities within the area to establish a program for students and be able to bring them in to work on AI initiatives for the city. So essentially, AI is something we hear a lot about. A lot of times it's around conversational AI like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, that sort of thing. AI is much more than that. So the application that we're looking at for the city would be more than just being able to ask a simple question.
I know they just trained me on Microsoft Copilot. Is that what you're looking at?
That is one of the things that we're looking at. That is specific for productivity for internal staff. The initiatives that we're looking for or that we're looking at from an AI perspective are more about automating city processes, being able to do the type of work that an individual cannot do. Currently today, we already have made progress on implementing AI and machine learning in a number of systems throughout the city. One is our 311 Center for Non-Emergency. We've implemented bots and things behind the scenes that allow our residents to be able to interact quicker with our customer service center or building call center and some other areas within the city. We also implement a number of AI and machine learning capabilities for our cybersecurity program to do proactive defenses of city systems. We use an AI module to do our training. And we've also been using machine learning and AI in our analytics initiatives for the city for a lot of our dashboards and a lot of our reporting. So that's well on its way. I've had conversations with the CIO from Miami-Dade College, as well as we have meetings scheduled with the Dean of Academics and the team that runs the technology program at Miami-Dade College. They have the first bachelor's degree in AI in the state. So they've really been pushing the envelope from their end as well. So we've had exploratory conversations that we're going to continue to be able to look at how it is that we can potentially partner with them to bring students, work on projects throughout the semesters and develop, our own kind of bullpen of interns and students that we can work with in the future.
Frank, why don't we just partner with them to do professional development so that you can train people on these different services that save so much time? I mean, they're actually encouraging us as faculty members to use it to, write our syllabi and stuff like that. It was pretty amazing. I could say, give me a syllabi for a 3-minute demonstrative speech in a table format. And within a minute, I have the most amazing syllabus that would have taken me hours. So it's kind of a cool thing. And I think our employees should have the same kind of training. Our training was a couple of hours. Why don't you speak to them about, well, first you have to purchase it, correct?
Yeah, so we have the capability to add AI tools like that. Some of that comes down to licensing as a government agency. Sometimes they are available to us a little later because they have to be vetted by the federal government, and we all kind of fall within that bucket. So that is something that we have started to look at. It's going to be available to us fourth quarter this year, so October, November, December. We expect to be able to get that, and we will do training, and we'll start seeding that with staff throughout the city. Part of making this successful, we have to work on a governance plan. There's some specific things that we need to do for our protection as well, but that is very much something my team has been focused on for the last several months. So we have every intention of doing that.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Frank. We'll close this out, but obviously there's an ongoing item, right?
Yes.
Unofficially. So be proactive with this. If there's things that you see and we need to have an intermittent update, I ask you to please not wait for us to say, what's going on here? Come to us, because you are on the ground. You're the foremost expert on it, so please feel free to be proactive and engaged.
Absolutely.
I have a
Appreciate it.
question. Did ChatGPT write your item?
No, absolutely not.
I'm kidding.
No. It did not.
Got to put your money where your mouth is, Frank. Okay, so let's close this item out, and let's move on to item 14. Vice Mayor Fernandez, I believe this is your item.
And I'll just recognize our CIO to present us with his update on this item, on Tyler.
Okay, thank you.
Just read the title. MB 14, discussion regarding Tyler Technologies performance and strategy for the city of Miami Beach, and MB 14. Thank you.
Okay, so this is an old item that we've been carrying over for the past several years. The intent of this initially was to just be able to speak to the state of some of our technologies with Tyler, which in the past have been a pain point. This is specific, today's update is specific to InterGov, which is the licensing, permitting, and inspection application that the city uses. 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago at this point, we had engaged in an RFI to test the market and see what other solutions were available in the market due to some of the issues that we were having. The results of that came back in a very limited capacity. So at the time, Tyler was still the preeminent solution for the size organization and the type of functionality that we needed. So at this stage, the city purchased InterGov 10 years ago. It's been in production for 8. This summer, we experienced significant performance and support issues from Tyler. So we are at a point now where I think it would be best suited for the city to go into a proper assessment of the entire technology as a whole, do a market study, interview staff, interview, stakeholders, and come back with a recommendation of whether or not this is still the best solution for our organization. If there are other options that are out there, do an assessment of what the cost would be, and then my intention would be to come back and bring that as an update or a recommendation to move in one direction or another. If we were to move from Tyler, there would be a financial impact to that. We're not sure exactly what that would be yet. There's a range that we're aware of for this type of product based on what other agencies are doing, but I'm not ready to make that recommendation at this time. We have funding to do this, so this is more of an update that it's our intent to move forward with that and find if there are any other solutions in place, in other agencies that would make us better.
Mr. Chair, what I'd like to do, if you allow me, let's keep this item open. I think it's good to have Frank come forward and keep us updated on this. This is essential to the delivery of service to our residents. So let's hear what the recommendation is at a future meeting.
Perfect. And just for the record, 3 items in a row. We haven't spent $1. We are on a roll. I love this. Thank
I'll just wait for it.
I know we said we'd do, thank you, Frank. I know we said we'd do item 18. I want to get our friends from Sunset Harbor. It looks like they have a big group here, so want to give them fairness. Thank you, Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, for pointing out how many of our friends and neighbors were here. So let's hear item number 3 and see what we can do for our neighbors and friends here.
Item OB3, discuss the possibility of the city assuming control and managing Sunset Harbor Lift Station, OB3.
Good morning. My name is Mark Halpern Rodriguez. I represent what we will call, for purposes of this hearing, the Sunset Harbor community. It really consists of 4 communities: Sunset Harbor South, Sunset Harbor North, Townhomes of Sunset Harbor, and the Sunset Harbor Yacht Club. We are here as a collective. As you all may recall, we were last in front of this committee on June 28th. At that time, during the last hearing, we presented a variety of arguments regarding why we felt, from both a practical, public safety, and a variety of other reasons, why Sunset Harbor South operating what is essentially a public utility is a bad idea, and one that ultimately creates, like I said, daily practical concerns as well as health and safety issues, potential environmental issues with backflow of sewage, which we've experienced on several occasions. Our system is tied in part to, the sewer system, which when there are issues with the city, there's no coordination. And we have essentially a property manager that is managing this incredibly complicated system. And so the last time we were here, we went over a spreadsheet that was presented to us by the city of other examples of lift stations in the city of Miami Beach. And what we said then and what we say now is that none of them are similarly situated. In other words, not a single pump station in this city is operated by a private entity and servicing other private entities. That, by definition, is a public utility. And so there are a lot of things wrong with this configuration. And so I believe what the committee said to the city the last time we were here, city, we want you to do a couple of things and then come back. The things that you all requested of the city was, number one, please attempt to locate any documents in the city's possession that memorialize this concept that a private entity like Sunset Harbor South would be maintaining a public utility and operating it and all of the things that go along with that. And number two, I personally challenge the city to show me a single property within the city limits that is operating a lift station that is for the benefit and use of their neighboring private entities. I said, and I repeat it now, it doesn't exist. So we got a list, again, originally from the city of, say, 20 properties. We've gone to every property. We've researched that list. They're hotels, they are hospitals, they are Coast Guard stations, and other things like this that are servicing their own property. That is the major distinction here. We are servicing three private properties. We are acting as a public utility. And so that's why we're here back today based on the Finance Committee's sort of thoughts and recommendations from our project.
And let's hear from the city for rebuttal, for lack of a better word. I guess how I'll phrase it, tell us where the fallacy in that argument is, because it sounded compelling.
Good morning. My name is Christina Ortega, City Engineer with Public Works, and I'm here with Brad, our Interim Director. We looked into and have provided the as-builts for this system. We have also provided that list of existing private lift stations. It's not uncommon for a private development to essentially construct a private lift station to service a development or a facility where reconstructing or upgrading the entire gravity system downstream of this point would be too costly to a point where the city doesn't have a project in place to do so, and the developer prefers to go the route of building a private lift station that would then pump the flows from that development or a number of developments towards a point in our sanitary sewer system that will carry those flows all the way to ultimately the treatment facilities. So in this case, again, we have a number of existing pump stations. There's been one more recently constructed for that development in 500 Alton in a similar fashion. So again, that is the choice that we're faced with new development, where the city system, perhaps, again, it would take significant level of investment to upsize the gravity pipes to get.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for that. You put it in very elementary terms. Even myself was able to follow along. So that initial outlay and initial CapEx investment was borne by the development. Now
Correct.
we're talking about the ongoing OpEx, and it seems like the neighborhood association or actually the private facility is saying, we just don't have the capacity or the know-how to continue operating this in a safe fashion. There would be nothing prohibiting the city, and perhaps we're even better positioned from an expertise standpoint to assume responsibility of operation of this. It just comes down to a financial aspect. So I think that's where I'm getting at, right? Where what I'd like to see happen, but tell me where I'm off here, because I'd like to see the responsibility of ongoing operations move over to the city with some sort of financial collaboration between us and the development team that, you know, has been bearing the responsibility to date.
And it's absolutely a question of financials, right? There's the point of financials, there's also the precedence of the city taking over these private lift station systems that are based on an agreement with a developer at a time. When it comes to the financial aspect of this particular lift station, I know it's been said that there's an ongoing project to construct some upgrades to this lift station. This is something that, from our perspective, we haven't seen all the details. I do have concerns with the pumps in place that have the correct rating to ensure that all that. I understand that there's been issues with those pumps burning up and, you know, having a lot of issues with.
But all the more reason, isn't that more proof that the city should?
Well, again, in that instance, we have to hire a consultant, run the analysis, to ensure that the design for the system is sound, right? That the pumps in place are those that match the original operating point that was intended for the system.
Yep.
And that was one of, you know, when we looked at it briefly, the recommendation at that point is make sure that you have the correct pumps installed in your lift station, because if you don't, your pump may be operating at a point in the curve that causes it to have a lot of issues, higher maintenance that you should. So at that point, again, you need an engineering firm to assist you with evaluating and making a recommendation.
But I guess, isn't that just more amplification of the argument where it's like, well, if the city's the foremost expert here?
Again, it's a matter of the financials.
Right.
There's a cost, there will be a cost associated with purchasing new pumps, looking at the capacity of the pump station.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not saying that the city assume complete financial responsibility. I think that's where this conversation goes next, but I want to turn this over to my colleagues. And then we'll get more
If I may, whenever you all are done, I just wanted to rebut a few things there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm very empathetic to the concerns of the Sunset Harbor neighborhood as it relates to operating, the maintenance, the permitting of this lift station. It's a burden that usually residential buildings don't have. I do have a few questions. Perhaps our city attorney or staff could answer these questions for me. So it was referenced that currently Sunset Harbor is providing this service for the North Tower, the South Tower, the townhomes, and the yacht club. Was that always the intent when this pump station was placed? Or perhaps our Public Works Department, Christina or Brad, could answer this for me. When the buildings were built and this pump was put there, was it the intent for it only to be for the two condo buildings, and did the other properties come afterwards, or was it always part of the installation?
I believe we have as-built that show this configuration. I don't recall, quite frankly, I don't recall if this was the original or a change condition. I don't know if Brad or Liz, if you're aware.
I'm not sure that I've ever seen anything that would indicate it was anything other than that there was never an intent for the city to have that responsibility.
But my question is, the buildings that are there, they have the pump station. And then I'm being told by the building that's there that they're providing this service to the yacht club, they're providing it to the townhomes and other properties. Did those come afterwards? Or were those there from the beginning? Sir, perhaps you might have the
Yeah,
answer
so,
to that.
so to be clear, a couple things there. To be clear, this is not one community, and that's important to understand.
I understand, Mike, and this
we-
is not
we-
a court hearing, so
We've
let me.
communicated with the developer, who told us the intention was always for the city to take this over.
Understood. But my question is,
Uh-huh.
were the townhomes, the yacht club, there as part of the original development, or did they come in
No,
afterwards?
this was a phased development, so.
It was a
yeah,
phased
yeah,
development.
Yeah.
And so, Mr. Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, then the people who are operating this now, Sunset Harbor South, had to agree to allow these other properties to use
No.
these pump stations, no?
Well, it sounds to me, and I have not seen the documents, that there was a developer who developed a number of phases, right? And that developer in the as-built showed 4 different projects using the same pump station. So the developer should have, in its agreements with the condo associations, made some provision for the operation of the pump stations.
Is it in the condo docs?
No, it was never that's the point, it was never the intention, and it's frankly, it's illegal. Sunset Harbor South is a condominium association that doesn't have the right
right, so-
legally to operate a public utility.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, so it's not in the condo docs?
No.
It's not in the condo docs. So if it's not in the condo docs, the turnover from the developer to the homeowners, there's no legal instrument in which then the Sunset Harbor South accepted
No.
operation
Not
of
only
this.
that, but what you would expect to find in a declaration or possibly a master declaration, which there is no master association here, meaning the 4 communities are not connected through a master that governs the common areas. If there was, you would likely see something like a percentage allocation for each community when it comes to maintenance and operation. Nothing. Because again, according to the Bedzos, it was never intended to be maintained by the association. The problem for us and the problem for the city is and this was the challenge at the last hearing. And I think we've heard very clearly that the city is unable to find any document within the city's records where anybody agreed to this configuration where Sunset Harbor South was going to maintain and operate this pump station for 3 other communities. Because it's nonsensical. And what we also heard from the city, we heard about the list of other private communities that have lift stations, but what we didn't hear is that a single one of them are operating their lift station for their neighboring communities. That's a big difference. That is the difference.
Well,
And Mr.
if I
Attorney, I
may-
see you have your mic on, if
No,
I
I
may, through the
mean-
chair.
The fact that there are no documents with the city suggesting that the city was going to take this on, I mean, there are no documents. In other words, there is no documentation, so we don't know what your agreement was with your developer. Is there an existing agreement between the 4 buildings? How are you billing them now?
So, the first sort of answer to your original statement or question is there is never really an agreement between an association and a developer, because let's just, from a timing standpoint, when a community is developed, it's the developer that records the declaration of condominium, builds the building, et cetera. There are no homeowners, and the association is simply run by the developer. So it's a developer-controlled association. If there was an agreement per se, it would have to be the condominium documents themselves. Silent, nothing there.
So at the time of turnover, when the residents assumed the property from the condominium, from the developer, the residents never had any formal assumption of this. So I have a question for the city.
Can I answer can I answer that second question? And I'm sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to give him a complete answer. The second answer is, in terms of how do we fund it and how do we determine the percentages, we've created the only thing we could do, which was some sort of equitable division based on the number of units in each building, the marina. So we're just winging it. if I'm gonna be honest. We don't have any
And this
Thank
has
you.
been going on for how long?
20,
For 20 years. So I have a question for our staff. Because these projects came in line afterwards. The yacht club, the townhomes, and others. How did the city approve those projects? And contemplate their needs, for sewer services at those times?
So as far as the documentation that we were able to find and we have as an attachment here on the memo are 1995 as-built record drawings that show the lift station as a private lift station. And it does show the connection from all the units in question here. So that is.
From the 4 properties?
Yes, correct. And it does show, again, very clearly, demarcates the boundaries of the public sanitary
Thank you.
system versus a
Thank you,
private.
Christina. And one last question. Do we have any other pump stations in the city that are managed by a residential building? Which
wait, that may not be
please.
untrue, yeah.
Please. Oh, okay, so,
Yes.
so which buildings do we have in the city that manage their own pump
One
stations?
that I'm most familiar with because this was, the agreement was executed during my time here at the city, and this is 500 Alton, where a new private lift station was constructed
Okay,
to service that condo building.
that
right?
monster,
Say that again?
that monster. Yes, the monster. Okay. The
And
monster lift station for the monster.
And in a similar fashion, the lift station will remain private, where the force main, meaning the pipe after the lift station, the city will own and maintain.
And Mr. Kane, our Public Works Director, are we aware of any other residential buildings in the city? Christina's familiar with this one because it's from her tenure of service in the city government, but are we aware of any other that may exist? I know I have a list of about 20 pump stations, but I don't know which one of these are residential or not. The Palau, what is the configuration with the Palau?
We'll have to go back and check. Again, we just pulled the list of private lift stations, which.
I think I can help you with the Palau.
What is?
The Palau is on the list. It's at 1201 20th Street. But again, what neighboring communities are any of these lift stations servicing? That's the question. We freely admit that there are at least 2 or 3 other residential communities. But what's unique about ours is we are actually servicing our neighbors.
And I would venture to guess 500 Alton could be unique, given that part of the development agreement was actually a bilateral agreement with the city where they constructed a public park that could be part of that.
My biggest worry about this item is that our sanitation fund is already reeling, and we know that it's going under. Well, not under, but it's underfunded, and we know that there's going to be a large gap moving forward. Like, how would we even contemplate paying for this?
If I could just add to that, it would be the water and sewer fund would take that on. The water sewer fund does have its obligated reserves for that, but as we know, we do have a large, very, very large capital program in play. And actually, Public Works is already engaged with, and I think we were at FERC a number of months ago, where we said we'd be coming back probably in the fall in a couple of months to be discussing rate adjustments for the next 4 years to afford this couple $100 million capital, water and sewer capital program. So if this was something that was to be taken on, obviously Public Works would have to put this into the financial model.
And something that I brought up the last time, I just want to reiterate it because I think it's very important to understand, is that every time the city performs work on the sewer system, our lift station goes down. We find out usually after the fact because we have raw sewage backflow that comes up at the end of the line at townhomes. That is on the water. We have a garage full of raw sewage. It backs up into the building. there is going to be, at some point, that is going to go from land to the bay. We can't control it. And we know that when that happens, there's going to be major environmental concerns. So we're trying to get ahead of it as best we can. We've been dealing with this, I think we've been actually on a bypass since like 2017 from Hurricane Irma. We have something on our hands that is way beyond our abilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I don't like creating this precedent. I really have a very a strong issue with us now saying, that we're gonna get this private pump station. It was done by a developer so that he could do this development and a number of other developments in the area. But the reality is, we have an entire neighborhood there, pretty much an entire neighborhood. How many residents do we
Over
have
2,000 in our buildings alone.
Thank you. Over 2,000 residents there. I don't like the idea of one building providing the service to multiple other buildings. They're not a public utility. The gentleman is correct. I'm sorry?
Especially absent an official agreement.
Especially absent an agreement, especially absent any covenant in their documents where at the time of turnover that they would have accepted this responsibility. There's something here that while I don't like the precedent, there's something here wrong that I don't feel comfortable with the Sunset Harbor South building having to provide this service to the other buildings. And what concerns me about this is that this is an essential service. Condominiums don't always, today Sunset Harbor is doing very fiscally well, I would imagine. I don't have the impression that there's any financial issues in Sunset Harbor. That's not always the case in these buildings. And now we're placing on them the responsibility of, responsibly managing and taking care of this pump, even though the other buildings, contribute to it, but it's a responsibility that falls on the management of Sunset Harbor. What if in the future, and we sit in the present thinking about the future, what if in the future someday they have an issue with mismanagement, there's financial issues involved? Really, that basic sewer utility service is something that should be the responsibility of the government, of the city government, for all these other residents. I really don't like the precedent we may potentially set here, and it's something that I'm not willing to entertain again. But given the uniqueness and the amount of other properties this one pump station serves, I'm willing to support our colleague in his item and make a motion to recommend this with a positive recommendation to the City Commission.
Yeah, I'd like to go to colleague Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, then Commissioner Bott. I'll make a comment, and I want to get some more engagement from staff.
Would you be willing to do some sort of revenue share on this? Because I think that there are 2,000 people that you are servicing.
I think we're open to absolutely discussing all of that.
Okay, so Commissioner Fernandez, I think that the finance department has to meet I would love you to change your motion to have everybody sit down and work out some sort of revenue share, okay, that will work for everyone. I don't think we should take on 100%. Unfortunately, this developer, took advantage of the system. We want to help. We're going to help. I think that the will is there to help. Let's figure out something that works for everybody so that we all walk away with some sort of compromise without shouldering the entire expense.
We're totally on board with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Give us 1 second, Sarah. Let us just keep the comments up here, and then we'll turn it over to you, but stay there. Commissioner Bott.
Yeah, I just had this conversation last night on a totally not related issue, which is that we in Miami Beach have created so many precedents and been so derelict in our responsibilities over the last multiple decades, going back 40, 50 years of letting developers, with a wink and a nod, take advantage of the city. Maybe the laws didn't anticipate what the developer was proposing. Maybe it was just shoddy negotiating. Maybe it was well-intended and records actually just got lost, who knows? But here we are with another situation. The one yesterday was totally different. And we see it all the time of somebody doing something that was not in the best interest of their constituents, in this case, the developer and the people who are buying into his project. And the city, for whatever reason, did not at the time better manage the process. And it's exhausting because we're constantly in the position of cleaning up, no pun intended, given the topic here, cleaning up somebody else's mess. And it's got to stop. And I know, I don't know anything. I am presuming, given the, my colleagues on this commission, not just in this meeting, but are very eager to have people get what they need, but be responsible as business people, right? We don't want to keep people from doing business, but do it in a legitimate manner. And this is just a really egregious case of that. So I agree with what has been suggested. The precedent is terrible, but these circumstances are so wildly unique and exacerbated that these are buildings that are on the water, the edge of the water. It's not in the middle, where we can figure out some other motion. So one of the things that you said today and at the prior meeting was that you guys don't know about things happening in the city, and when the city's pumps go down or whenever there's a problem, you find out because you have to scoop the poop. So I don't know how these things work. It's all magic to me. So I would like your team to work with our team, even before we figure out negotiations on this issue moving forward. How do we fix that immediate problem, right? Yeah. We're still in the middle of hurricane season. We're in high tide situations going on. We've got flooding all over the city for reasons that we literally can't control. So how do we make sure that when you know that there's a problem that may or may not affect you guys, that there's communication ahead of the fact so that anything that needs to happen in these buildings to ward that off, so we're not scraping poop into the bay if something goes wildly awry. We had that off at the pass.
I'm hard pressed to believe that you didn't mean any of those puns. But okay.
That's just how my brain works. What can I say?
So what I would like to see going forward, I think we'll keep this item here. But what I would like to see is, from the city's standpoint, what this is going to cost from a financial perspective, twofold. One is that one-time upfront cost, if there's any CapEx involved in essentially switching over longer-term operations to the city, and then what our annual OpEx is going to be. And then if I could have from the neighborhood association any type of documentation of what your financial OpEx costs have been, historically, because I want to take off the operational burden.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we share the entire financial burden, right?
Understood.
I want to be sure that we do this because you are not best equipped to do this. We are, that burden shouldn't fall to you, but that doesn't mean, okay, you've been spending $200,000 a year operating and all of a sudden that's borne by us. I think it would be fair to say, okay, you continue, contributing whatever the operating expenditures were. We'll take over the leadership and expertise capabilities.
Mr. Chair, should we ask our city attorney, our administration to perhaps engage in some conversations, drafting some sort of agreement that could come back to this committee that then we could potentially recommend to the city commission as part of this discussion?
I think that sounds like a good idea. I see a lot of pens raised in the air.
I'll put my pencil down.
If I can, and I think in trying to facilitate, because there's a couple of things here. I think there's a request from staff that would have to engage with a third-party consultant to do some design and help cost estimate some of the improvements and such that would be needed. And the other is then to direct the administration then to begin negotiating a control transfer on that. So I'm going to take a shot. I've been trying to take notes here. I'm going to try and take a shot at a motion, I think, because I think it does have to go back to commission and retain here, which would return to commission but be retained here also, with a favorable recommendation to direct the administration to negotiate a transfer of the Sunset Harbor lift station to city control with a sharing of costs between the parties after the city is engaged with the consultant to determine said costs.
Can I have that come back to?
And that come back to
I'll
the clerk.
second it.
I just wanted to be clear. Is there a shared cost, or my understanding is, we don't know yet? Okay.
I think I left,
So-
if I may, I left it as a generic share cost because first, When it goes back to the commission and that direction is given by commission, then they would, Public Works would expend some dollars to engage with that design consultant, because there's a difference in the level of service and design when it comes to a private versus a public lift station. So they would engage with that consultant, figure out what those improvement costs would be, confirm what the operating expenses would be. There would be discussions on that thing, and there would be a negotiated agreement. It would come back to FERC for final recommendation for the final agreement, then to go back to commission with the final numbers and layout.
Yeah, and in terms of sharing, what I envision very simplistically, if Sunset Harbor comes back with documentation that says annually it costs us $1 to essentially operate this, and the city comes back and says it's going to cost us $1.20 going forward, I think, it would be fair that Sunset Harbor maintains, their historical OpEx share, and, we would essentially take the share where we have to operate above and beyond, but that's just very elementary. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, then Sarah.
Yeah, this is just for my colleagues, and I wanted to point out that this type of work is what that legislation that I moved forward, that at the committee level, we could request information, we could request this type of contract work. This is why we just did that simple legislative fix, just so that, I know there's a second reading on that, isn't there, Rick?
There is. It will be in October.
Okay, just wanted to point
But
that out.
the reason I was pointing out is because there's a direction to expend funds on the design consultant, so that still would have required, I think, going back.
See, that's the kind of thing that we might, that's why I think Rick had initially included that type of expense. Now we have to go bump it back to the commission, come back to the committee, just to get that design work done, where, if we would have passed it the way that Rick and his team wrote it, we'd be able to get that done right now, so we would save several months.
I don't know if the mic is on. First, you have the documentation of how much it's costing per year, because I provided that spreadsheet. Second of all, we do have an engineering consulting firm that did the whole new lift station, because we had to upgrade it because of DERM. And all that information we have, and their engineers can come and sit down with our engineers in terms of what they recommended and the rating of the pump, and how we raised the electrical panel, how we had to have the stairway way above 5 feet above the sea level. We did all that. And we promised originally when we came here that they were going to get a working lift station, all done, permitted by DERM, permitted by the city, running, including we're doing the pipe test, because there is a rock that is in the pipe that we're fixing, and that's the outstanding item that we have to do. I just want to make sure everybody's clear that this wasn't done just by our engineer. We hire a company that does the lift station, and then they told us, so they can sit down with them and work out if it's correct or not by your consultants.
That's exactly what we're saying, is to bring in, our consultant to assess the existing lift station, to assess the improvements that are being executed, and verify, because again, the requirements for our public utility are a little bit more stringent than they are on a private lift station.
I agree. And remember, it's always 4 entities. You don't have anything like this. 500 was an agreement. It's a single entity building. If it was a single entity, we wouldn't be in front of you. It was Sunset Harbor.
So this makes sense from the city's perspective as well?
Again, for us to do an assessment of the existing lift station, to get our consultant involved in executing the assessment and identifying the improvements required, and coming up with a detailed estimate of what the capital cost associated with that would be. Because again, that's an area where we're talking about, potentially greater capital investment from the
Do you
cities.
need anything from this committee to facilitate that process?
I guess the funding.
Just a motion to take those actions from the city staff.
Is there a funding cost associated with this? Do we
There
have
would
the
be a
design
cost
firm on
associated,
retainer?
yes.
Any ballpark idea?
I'll have to go back and look
Okay.
into it and.
Yeah,
provide it.
okay.
Yeah, and if I may, in the water and sewer fund, they usually have some funds set aside for studies and design work. I don't think it'll be significant. It should be work within, not requiring a budget amendment. We would, of course, bring it if needed, but I don't believe that would be needed.
Well, and we'll do everything within our power to keep the city's costs down, including turning over every bit of information and documentation to show all the work we've done to satisfy, hopefully, the engineers to say, there is no cap cost. We just need to come in and maintain this thing, because we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this thing where it needs to be.
Yeah, and that would be great if we'd be able to just do a sanity check on the studies that they've already done.
Yep.
To essentially leverage some of the costs that they've already expended.
Yep.
Okay.
Also.
All good. So, Mr. CFO, if you could nicely wrap that up.
I'll read the motion, the draft motion that I return to commission with a favorable recommendation, direct administration to negotiate a transfer of the Sunset Harbor Lift Station to city control with a sharing of costs between the parties after the city has engaged with the consultant to determine said cost and the item to be retained at FERC. Anyone wants to make that?
Moved.
Good.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Yeah,
Commissioner
thank you.
Magazine,
There's
there's a public speaker on the line.
Yes, please.
He just put his hand up.
Okay, thank you. Let's go item number 18 on the.
Let me read.
I hope you don't have to read all that, do you?
No. I'm going to skip
Su-
that formality,
summarize?
but if I may, MB 18 is a procurement item related to engineering services for seawalls. MB 18.
Perfect. Vice Mayor Fernandez, please introduce this amazing item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an item that was on the consent agenda of our last city commission meeting, I think it was. And the reason why I pulled the item is because of its importance. We have 5 miles of city-owned seawalls in our city. And we are actively doing a lot to make sure that they're structurally sound, that they're protecting our public streets, our infrastructure from rising tides. I mean, we're seeing right now during this king tide period the great necessity to have sound seawalls. Actually, yesterday we had a sunshine meeting over in the Palm View neighborhood where we were seeing the intrusion of this water into our streets and how entire streets and neighborhoods just get taken over by the intrusion of this water. So this contract for engineering services for seawalls and living shoreline is so important for the future resiliency of our city. I was reviewing the documents, and I saw that 2 companies were tied in the rankings, Cummings and Moffat. And what ended up happening was that Cummings was the one that ended up being recommended. But when I went back and I looked at the scoring from the different participants in the review committee, 3 of the participants had recommended Moffat as their top selection to provide the services. And Cummings, the one that the administration ended up going with, only had 2 of the participants in the selection committee give them the top ranking. So all that I want to ask is for this to go back to the administration, for the administration to review it, to see if the administration feels comfortable with the recommendation. For me, it's just, this is very important. We're moving forward on very critically needed infrastructure to protect our city from flooding. And when I see that there's a tie and the administration is going with the company that most of the members of the selection committee didn't rank on the first place, it gives me a little bit of concern. So I just want them to give it, a second glance and see what feedback the administration might give us on it.
How much will that cost? Nothing? Perfect. Yes, thank you for your leadership on this, Vice Mayor.
So I'd like to make a motion to send this back to the city administration to review and to give their recommendation to the committee.
Yeah, it's an exciting item, very much needed. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, so is for administration to return to FERC with a final recommendation? Thank you. And we'll bring that back next month, I guess. All right, thank you.
If we could call NBH, the Wolfsonian FIU.
NB8. No, I'm sorry.
NB11.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
NB11, discuss sponsorship of the Wolfsonian FIU audiovisual upgrade to support local cinema programming. NB11.
I know we have Casey here from the Wolfsonian who has prepared a short presentation, and I also know that we've recently just given funding to all of our cultural organizations, but prior to knowing about the state cutting the funding and in preparation for our movie theaters closing, what we've been trying to do around the city is upgrade audio-visual equipment so that it's DCP, which I believe is digital. What does that stand for, Casey? Is it DC something? I don't know. Anyway, it's the updated, and the reason we want to do this is because that way they can screen any movie that comes out, because the technology is accelerating so rapidly that if you have older AV equipment, you can't scan certain films. So there's a few components in place. Number one, I'd like to note that even the programming involved in this is not a recurring expense. It would be a one-time expense. Number two, we could potentially get some of this funding from the GMCVB, because we are going to have to be able to host film festivals, and we won't be able to if and when the Regal is finally closed, and we know that that closing is imminent. And number three, the Wolfsonian would have some great programming. I mean, films like, Roman Holiday or Breakfast at Tiffany's, and it would be in conjunction. And he has a whole presentation, and I don't want to take away your thunder, but I know that it's a large ask. But as we do this across the city, when you see the public benefit that they're proposing right now, and we start to have these independent movies screened all across the city, including the Colony Theater with the Hispanic diaspora, and the O Cinema with the indie films, and then the Wolfsonian with, films that are, iconic and historical and relevant. I think you're going to see it's going to become a draw. And I think we're going to get known for it, because we're competing with so many other areas now. Wynwood and the Design District and Brickell City Center. What do we have? Well, guess what? You can come to Miami Beach nearly any night of the week and see some interesting film. And I think that that's a very cool initiative. And when you look at the overall impact and the public benefit that we're getting from this, I would just hope that you would somehow consider it. On that, I will give it to Lisette and Casey.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. Lisa Arrogante, Director of Tourism and Culture, City of Miami Beach. And so, as the commissioner just queued it up, this is a program that's being proposed, about 18 programs a year. And Casey, the Director of the Wolfsonian, is here to speak a little bit more about this proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I know we have a PowerPoint, PJ. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vice.
Go ahead. And by the way, PJ, the new lights are fabulous. Just want to let you know that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, staff, for having this opportunity to speak with you. I'm sorry for the chair to make the distinction of making the first ask for funding for what has been a very good meeting for him, I believe. So my apologies for making that distinction for you today. I'm here to speak to you about the Wolfsonian audiovisual upgrade and cinema programming proposal that was provided in MB11. I'm the director of the Wolfsonian FIU and also a City of Miami Beach resident. Our staff over recent months has been looking at the possibility of incorporating cinema programming into our core portfolio of programs. The intention here is to make this available completely at our facility so that we can coordinate exhibition tours, curatorial tours, as well as the film experience. We think that this has a number of benefits for the community. One, as has been mentioned, we're talking about expanding the availability of cultural programming. There'll be 18 programs a year, 12 produced by the Wolfsonian, 6 that we'll offer up for partners in the community, such as film festivals and other entities. We think by investing in this technology, we'll be able to broaden and enhance the programs that we're already presenting in this auditorium space. For example, we partner with MDPL for the Art Deco Weekend Lecture Series. We present these programs there. We also host our family programs in this space. We also have book talks and other items. Sometimes even new artists present works in the space. Film programming as a whole in museums has become a way for us to draw entry into museums. Everyone's been to a museum. I'm sorry, everyone's been to a movie. I hope everyone's been to a museum. So they have an experience that's familiar to them, and we hope to enhance that film experience by presenting the collections, the exhibitions, and the content of the museum. For those that are avid museum goers, the film is an added enhancement for their experiences also. This is an ongoing commitment. While our ask is one-time support for the operating cost, this will be embedded in our annual programming ongoing. We think it's critical to add this element to our programming for many, many years to come. We also have a capital investment underway as it relates to the expansion of the Wilsonian. What that's going to allow us to do is transform this space. It currently is a very structured, formal auditorium space. Once we complete our expansion, our intention is to create a more intimate, flexible, casual third space, still presenting the same sort of content, film screenings, lectures, and things of this nature, but possibly in a more impromptu nature and a little bit more ad hoc opportunities. No presentation to Finance Committee should include numbers or omit numbers. We were looking at our year-on-year attendance numbers and looking particularly in those areas where we think the City of Miami Beach residents benefit the most. We offer free Friday evenings, State of Florida resident entry in the Culture Crawl program. Year on year, we've seen a 9% increase in the utilization and attendance for those. And programming, all of our programming is free for City of Miami Beach residents. So if you look at every bit of the program, the 15% increase, every bit of that is available to the residents. Some programs of particular interest are noted, and they've seen a 62% increase in attendance. Just to quickly review the proposal, we're asking for one-time capital funding, which would be about $86,500 to support the installation of the new equipment to bring a 4K experience to the auditorium space. There is a one-time request for annual support, operating support to launch the program for its first year or for the first 12 months. That's almost $34,500. And in the interest of the comfort of our visitors and patrons, there is an element in here for requesting padded seating for $24,800. I would note we are soliciting and have asked for funding through a grant through FIU Tech Fee funds. At the time when we requested that grant, we had not envisioned bringing the cinema programming in-house. So the specifications for the projector there is not quite at the level of 4K. That's $26,511. If we move forward with this proposal, there is the flexibility. Those dollars can be applied to the upgraded equipment. We would not forfeit that grant. We should be learning about the award of that grant within the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's dependent upon when the period goes in. Finishing with some images, this is sort of an ideal situation, this idea of a third space. This would not be immediate. This would be our future as we talk about the expansion, creating some intimate spaces, casual spaces for people together. Currently, we host curator talks and experiences before our lectures. This is some examples of the gatherings in the galleries before the people move down into programming into our auditorium. This past year, we partnered with the City of Miami Beach On Stage program and hosted the Miami Beach Rock Ensemble for our Halloween Family Day. Very well-attended event. This is in the space. You see projections of the existing equipment behind the band and the performers. And these are some examples of our past film programming where we make the connection between our exhibitions, in this case an Italian design show for textiles and Italian screening for Italian style. Similarly, a Russian constructivism poster exhibition and a program series of cinema films for Red and the Black. And that is my presentation. I'm welcome. Any questions?
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, then Commissioner Butt.
Okay. What I would also like to add is that the Wilsonian is on Washington Avenue, and we are trying to change the use on Washington Avenue and bring families there. I feel like sometimes the Wilsonian is a treasure that we have, and it has the most stunning indoor cafe. People don't know about it. What I like the most about the benefit is that families get free memberships, and the people who have memberships will get free movies. So in essence, any Miami Beach resident can go and become a member and then therefore see free movies. And one of the reasons why I would like to do this is because we are going to reach a situation where we have a bunch of tourists and we have rainy days, and they're not going to have a movie theater to go to, but potentially they will be able to go to the Wolfsonian. And I know that the examples that Casey showed were every month, but how many nights per week, Casey, if we install this one-time recurring, give you the operating expenses, like how many nights per week will this be activated? Because it's important that I want to have at least, a couple nights per week. I'm not sure
So
what
generally, because we are doing the lecture series or a talk, or maybe bringing in speakers to enhance the movie and film experience, it would be one evening a week or one evening a month, plus the 6 additional that our partners would do. The opportunity to screen the film independent of the more enriched program experience, we can certainly explore that. That's just a question of the fees that we have to pay for the licensing of showing the films.
For me, it would be important that that we at least have one movie a week, one a month. That's a lot of expense for, one per month. And I understand that we're going to be working with the partners, but I would like to see a movie at least once a week. Because the idea is to have your doors open. I know, it's a big ask. I know, but you know what? This is going to bring people to the Wolfsonian. You can then start to cross-market with the city and invite people in potentially for like a happy hour at your gorgeous cafe prior to the movie. I mean, you really have a resource there that residents don't necessarily know about, and I would love to activate that area of Washington Avenue. So.
Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, you stole my thunder. I was going to say the same thing about Washington Avenue, but the fact that we're all thinking about this is emblematic of what the conversation is. We are trying very hard to figure out how to revive Washington Avenue without destroying its character, but make it more of a live, work, play. And oh, by the way, you're blocks from Feinberg Fisher, which is probably the most under-resourced school in the entire city. I think there's a lot of good that can be done with this, not just for the reasons that you've mentioned, but if you go to the band shell now, up in North Beach, which some people don't know where that is, it's north of 63rd, but the band shell is a premier destination for live music now, for many reasons, but not least of which is the enhanced audiovisual capabilities they have, because not only do they now have amazing bands multiple times a week, but they also have projection imagery. So whether it's just the band stuff that they've done, or they invite in projection mapping artists to project things, so that if you can enjoy the music, even if you're just going for a walk with your kid and your dog after dinner, you can plop down and not have to buy a ticket, but hear and see this thing as well. And so I know you are extremely thoughtful about spending money, and I thank goodness, because somebody has to be. I feel like the seats thing could wait. Like, we've all suffered through those seats, but they're not terrible. It's not like they're planks of wood with splinters. I think that can wait. It would be amazing if we could get the FIU grant and apply that so the total ask is lower. But I echo my colleagues' comments about, let's think. The programming, the big programming, the lectures and all that stuff is great, but let's find ways to, maybe without straining your staff to stay until 11 o'clock. I mean, I know that's a whole different conversation, but within the operating hours, or finding a way to mitigate the cost of operating this, but find ways to get young musicians united in there, find ways to get the kids across the street who have very little available to them in terms of facilities. And it is, among all of the jewels of cultural institutions in our city, and we are incredibly lucky to have so many, probably the least well-known and the least understood. And it's a magical little jewel box. And oh, by the way, the cafe is great. And there are great gifts for people, and affordable gifts for people when you can't figure out what to get them. So I want people in there. My mom is an art historian and an art educator and a docent. And that's what she's done her entire life. And the way you get people involved in culture is sneaking them in the back door. They don't even know they're having culture thrown at them. Right? So you go in because your friend's playing at a band, and then you've got some time before the show starts, and there's an exhibition about some cool poster that you saw, you want to go see the poster. Or I want to have a snack at the cafe, and I'm looking at the book, and oh my gosh, that's a thing about it's all this like ecosystem that thrives. And as a city, not just for Washington Avenue, but as a city that is transitioning to an arts and cultural destination more than it has been in the past and more than it even is now. And as we seek to change our brand, to get different kinds of tourist populations, like we might have a whole beach movie theme week, right? Like, so we have Where the Boys Are, whatever movies we can dig up about, and Castaway or whatever, all beach themed movies that could generate all kinds of tourism and economic dollars. And this is a quick presentation that was put together without the benefit of weeks of brainstorming and reaching out to see, hey, what about screening movies that would have come to the Regal but don't have a place to go anymore the week that they're no longer at that level. So they're almost first run, right? There are endless opportunities here. And so my motion on this would be to take out the seats, and we can revisit down the road, and to approve this with the caveat that if we get the funding from FIU, our supporting of this gets reduced accordingly.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Fernandez.
I love Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez's idea, her vision to bring, to make Miami Beach a destination for films. Too many times, as our chair, Joe Magazine mentions, we talk often about the city we don't want to be, and we often don't talk about the city we want to be. And this is where it's so great to have someone like Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez on the board of the Wilsonian. Thank you for your service there, Commissioner, for your vision. Because I do think, this elevates us. This brings us something that we can all be proud of, and it's a level of excitement that we need on Washington Avenue, because the potential is there. All that we need is the investment, the dedication, the vision into it. So proud to support your item, Commissioner.
So, my thoughts. Yes, Washington Avenue needs help. I'll be upfront. Not exactly my cup of tea. It's not that I don't think there's a place for this, right? I just think about bang for your buck in terms of, I personally have never talked to anybody that has moved across the bay or young people hanging out in the design district. They said, well, if only there's a movie once a month at Wolfsonian, I wouldn't have moved. But I'm not so dogmatic to think that my way is the only way. So I try and take into consideration a broad array of interests, and not just mine. So I appreciate that people spend their evenings differently than I may spend mine. And there's a place for art and culture. It's just bang for the buck weighs on me. Couple questions. And we just funded the O Cinema, right? What's the differentiating factor between the theater that I think last night was the premiere, right, at O Cinema versus what this will encompass?
So in the past, when we've done our film series programs, because we did not have the adequate equipment in our facility, we did a joint program with O Cinema, and even before that with Miami Cinema Tech. There was some challenges with doing that programming. Of course, O Cinema is going to reserve the premiere spots for showing the films that generate the income to support their organization and their mission. So we had a bit of a challenge finding appropriate slotting and times. The second item was that we could never afford to completely buy out the theater, so the program was not completely free. We may have an experience at the Wilsonian that was free. The individuals walked across and would have to purchase a ticket for the movies. We're talking about incorporating that all into one experience. Also, generally, O Cinema is doing very new art films. It's a very different sort of idea of what we look at. We're looking at content that's directly related to our exhibitions, so generally that skews too much. If it's true film and not documentary, it's generally skewing to the period before 1950 as it associates with our collection. And then if we are showing documentary materials, it's generally tied to our collections and tied to an experience there. So the idea would be that we would be able to deliver all of this under our control in terms of being free at the Wilsonian. And I would speak to the idea of increasing the number of evenings that we can do film. You are correct. We can increase the number, and we have been talking about ways that when we're not using our Friday evenings for other programming content, how do we deliver content that will generate interest and bring individuals in from the street? And again, in a way we can figure out how we can make that for free, so there's not a ticket associated with it. So it is possible that we can increase the number of films. I don't think that would be a difficulty. It's a question of licensing fee, and we just have to make sure it manages through the budget.
Quick synopsis, because then I have a few other questions.
Very quickly, so at the O, we purchased about $80,000 worth of equipment. They did not require operating expenses because they already have, funding and they're already a movie theater. In essence, here, we're creating an experience. What I would ask Commissioner Bott, if possible, to add to her motion is to have Lisette reach out to the GMCVB to see what they could contribute and if they could take care of the chairs.
Well, I would say, let's see if they have any money to contribute and let's leave it open and see what it is. And I still think I'd rather get this going now and figure out how to fund the chairs later. I mean, it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of our budget, and it's not going to make or break the program. So I think asking the GMCVB to chip in is great, but let's do the chairs separately.
Okay. I fully support that, and this would be for this budget cycle. We're putting it in now, correct? Okay.
Well,
Yes.
how does that work? Because we were just talking, Mr. CFO, we didn't have $30,000 for lighting along Washington Avenue.
Well, these are a one-time expenditure. We're still tabulating the outcome of the first budget hearing, and we'll have our second budget hearing on Wednesday. If I'm looking at some of the math correctly, because I was trying to follow here along, was that, I'm trying to see here, if we were going to hold off, it was 145 and change was the total ask. If we're going to deduct the seating project for now at 24.8, you're at about 121. And then if the FIU grant comes in, I think it's around 26.
26,511.
Right. If okay, minus 26,511, you're down to around $95,000. Well, what I would say is this could return to commission with favorable recommendation to support a one-time grant to support the AV upgrade, excluding the chairs, and to explore our partnership with GMCB to perhaps, hopefully, funding part of it, but obviously to get this thing moving. If there ends up not being enough one-time dollars that are available there's two ways really. Is we take it from reserves, but also we have a we'll have a surplus that we'll be handling as of the end of this fiscal year, and we'll be bringing a budget amendment in November, as we always do, where those dollars are rolled over for capital expenditures, and it could come from that rollover surplus at the very least.
Casey, just two more questions. From the Art and Culture Geo Bond, did the FIU Wilsonian get money allocated there?
Correct.
And how much?
We have $5 million, and that's to support the development and the expansion to the north of our building and to add 25,000 square feet of new public space. Because of that expansion, we're able to talk about in the future transforming this space to a new and different space, but it's not really included in those dollars because it's already public space and we're not creating new public space. We were really targeting those dollars to the opportunity to add and create new public space.
Okay. Where I'm at with this, like I said, it's not my vision for what's going to draw people to Washington Avenue, but I understand that we need to consider a diversity of different types of thought and interest and things like that. So I'll be supportive here. Going to sleep on it before the budget meeting, to see kind of, okay, if we do this, are we not going to be able to do something like street lighting or things like that? But I'm going to be supportive, and I know it's important to my colleagues here, so I'm really going to consider that there's, a very diverse array of interests and viewpoints, even though, it's not me. So I appreciate my colleague bringing this. I appreciate your role in the community. I know you all do a lot, and I'm proud to have you as a partner here.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner.
If I may add, Chair, I think this probably would not need to come up at the second budget hearing. I think what would be best if the motion, as I had listed it for you for consideration, because there's a couple of things that are in flux here.
Right.
So if this goes back to the October 30th commission meeting, which will be our next commission meeting, I think that'll give time for the team here to deal with two things. One is hopefully to find out what the final grant amount would need to be, because we'll know what hopefully the FI, if the state grant comes in, and then also Lizette to work with GMCVB to hopefully partnership. So it could be as high as 120,000. It could end up being as low as $30,000 or $40,000 of GMCV. So I think hopefully between now and October 30th, that can be determined. It would go back to commission as a resolution, and then if it gets approved, whatever those dollars are, I would handle that in the November budget amendment.
And that would also give us an opportunity to refine some of the programming suggestions that you've had and see how we can include those in that, and we'll give you a more definitive sort of statement about what the opportunity for programming will be, additional films, things of that nature.
Yeah, for my continued support, I certainly needed to see something more than one evening a month.
Yeah, for sure.
We can work on that.
And Jason, if I might, through the chair, just a couple of other things that popped into my head. If there are grants out there for, historical films or, film workshops or whatever, if there are grants out there that we're not pursuing because that's not what we're focused on, but that you guys have access to or know about, let's definitely reach out to them. And similarly, if there are movie distributors, or I don't know how this whole industry works, but there got to be people who are not psyched that there won't be a place to go see a first run movie in Miami Beach. And so to say, hey, we're going to have top of the line equipment, let's do a partnership, and have them own every Tuesday night. You can see it just off a first run movie. You didn't see it opening night, but you saw it 4 weeks after it opened. That is a thing that would be a benefit to the community as well. That's not your alley, I know,
Right.
but let's find out whose alley it is and start those conversations, because they might also defray some of the costs. They might say, you know what, we do want really squishy, comfy seats that don't give people splinters when they sit on them. So those are my other two thoughts.
And Lisette, please reach out to them and push for the comfy seats in addition to some funding towards the equipment, please. Because I think it completes the whole experience. Right now, you guys have they're like plastic bucket seats. I mean, they're not awful, but there's not a place where on a rainy day you're going to be comfortable. So, okay, of course. Thanks.
Right.
Thank you, Casey, for what your
Commissioners.
organization does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So if the motion that I read, if the chair, would you like me to read it again, or?
Please. No, I think we're good.
Just need a motion, a second, and a vote.
I made a motion.
Oh, Bott made the motion? And second was? Okay.
Okay. Yep, thank you. How about we move on to NB5, discuss, while we're on Washington Avenue, discuss beautifying Washington Avenue by enhancing lighting and streetscaping. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, you have broad support here, but why don't you go ahead and introduce this item?
Okay. So, I get complaints all the time. The aesthetics on Washington Avenue. Not just Washington, but Ocean Drive too. We have lighting issues. And I don't know how long it would take and where we are going to find the funds. I'm actually, and I wanted to bring this up, I want you guys to hear this because it's important to get your weighing in, not just on Washington Avenue, but I'm going to be bringing forward an item to do the same on Ocean Drive, hopefully before the tourists come, using the GeoBond money, because they don't have lighting. We still have a crime problem here. I had a real estate client this weekend. It was so funny. He goes, he's kind of a nerdy guy. He goes, I felt so cool because I got offered cocaine walking down the street. Now, I'm laughing about that, but it's really not funny. It's not funny because he goes, I've never been offered drugs like that. So you come to Miami Beach, and even if you look like somebody who's never going to do drugs, you're getting offered drugs, okay? And that's what? And that's but that's what's happening. And so we need the lighting. We need it on Washington. We need it. They might even offer you drugs, Ray Breslin, but you look kind of like a hippie. I don't know if you have puka beads on or something. He might, I don't know. But the point behind this is that we need this lighting. We need it on Washington. Frankly, we need new lighting and sidewalks on Washington, and we need new lighting and sidewalks on Ocean. I know that it's funded on Ocean. I'm going to bring, because we have the GeoBond money, I'd like to bring that forward at the next meeting. I don't know where we're going to find the lighting for Washington Avenue, but I really think that this is a necessity. It looks like crap. Sometimes you only have the police lights.
We could find it from the Wolfsonian budget.
That's not funny, Brad.
Mr. Chair.
Rodney or Commissioner, Vice Mayor?
Oh, Rodney, I'm sorry. I mean, up to the chair. To you guys. You guys.
Rodney, go ahead.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Rodney Knowles, the Assistant Director for the Public Works Department. And the figure that you have before you in the memo is for the lighting, of course, for the east and west sides of Washington Avenue and the median. There's currently lighting in the median, but that light is pretty dim. It's at the end of its life cycle. We have burnouts all the time, and it's no longer under warranty. The reason why the figure for the lighting is what it is because we don't have the infrastructure in place on the east and west sides. We need the 120 volt infrastructure in order to power the lighting. So that's the biggest lift, and the figure includes maintenance for a year. Regarding the landscape portion of the ask, that's currently underway, Green Space Management Division of the Public Works Department has executed an enhancement from South Point Drive to 5th Street already. From 5th Street also up to 11th is currently underway and should be finished soon, and they anticipate starting phase 4, which is from 11th to 17th by the end of this calendar year.
Mr. Chair.
So we don't have the money for in-ground, but we can wrap the trees, and I think that will be nice. I'd really prefer to do permanent lighting. That is a totally different discussion, but I would think that doing this prior to season to beautify the area will be such a gesture of goodwill, because as you walk down the street, in addition, it looks like we're not, even if we clean it with our new gum machines and it is immaculate, it's just in bad shape. The other day, some residents reached out to me and there was like, people were tripping in the median. And I will say the city went right out and you replace those pavers and you replace the landscaping, and it looks so much better because that is right where the Lowe's Hotel is, where all of our tourists are walking. So this is just one simple thing. I had one question as we move forward with this stuff, because I know this is lighting, and I'm sorry, I'll be very brief. What would it look like to just make the sidewalks at least look uniform? Can't you just go and put some pink cement over all of them and make them look unified and beautiful? Do we have to rip it up? Is there any way that you could just go over it with a cement to make it look nice? Because it's so patchwork. If we put in the lights and we fix that sidewalk prior to the season, you're gonna feel totally different. We repaved the streets and it already looks so much better.
Putting a layer of concrete, fresh concrete, cement over the existing sidewalk will work. It will separate. In order for it to be true, you have to pour fresh concrete with the admixture for the color mixed into it so that it wears evenly over time. So putting concrete on top of concrete won't exactly work.
It won't adhere and it starts to crack.
Correct.
Yeah.
It will flip.
Well, let me hear how you feel about the lighting item, and before I bring a sidewalk item prior to season, I'd like to hear how you guys feel about that too, just giving them some love for the first time in decades. I do think that it was a managed decline across our historic district. And when you see that the city doesn't seem to care, why would the shop owners care? And why would vagrants or people having parties care? Because they look around them and they think, this is already a dump. Let me just dump on it some more, So I think this is high priority, and I would like to hear how you feel about it.
Vice Mayor Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Commissioner Wilson Gonzalez, for your vision with this. Regarding the sidewalks, there's so much excitement about the potential of, bringing full-time residents into this part of the city that perhaps, something that we could consider is as part of the legislations that are floating out there. As you go in and do new housing, you fix up some of these properties, you're also responsible for redoing the sidewalk in front of the properties. And that way, as we improve private property, we're also improving public property. And so that's something that perhaps, we can achieve at a lesser cost to the public. I just need to know, what is Washington Avenue doing to help itself? It's, we have a number of businesses. Why do we need this there? We need this there because there is a perception of safety. And the perception of safety that we have there is in large part because of a certain caliber of businesses that are attracting nuisances to this part of our city. And that is a contributing factor that we have there. What is Washington Avenue committed to doing? The bid and the businesses there. What are they committed to doing to help transition, to help change, to help improve the caliber of businesses that are there, to help transition from the nightclubs that are, having people executed outside of them, that is driving the need for resources to be placed there. And so I'm all for the city doing its part to improve areas. But I really need to know, what is the commitment from these private property owners to help themselves? Because it needs to be a partnership. It needs to be a two-way street. And right now, I don't know, where is that commitment right now to help see the transition of the area, the improvement, the new investments, the full-time residents, the transition of the problematic nightlife? And let me be very clear, there's problematic nightlife and then there's nightlife that's not problematic. And they both exist there. But we know very well that there are establishments that are within this part of the city that are attracting crime, that are attracting drug dealing, that are attracting prostitution, where individuals have been killed at. And I need to know, where does Washington Avenue bid stand in this this transition that we need to see of Washington Avenue before I commit the use of public taxpayers' dollars, especially when we're talking about millions of dollars?
Vice Mayor, I could not agree more. Perhaps one of the reasons I don't go to the Wolfsonian for movie night. Last night, I actually, ironically, not even think of this item. I went back, and this is embarrassing, but watched 6 hours of commission meeting from 2019. And in fact, there were Washington Avenue LDR amendments. And it made me, in a way, worried, but also so proud of the vision that our commission is taking. Because 5 years ago, they were talking about LDR incentives for Washington Avenue, right? The same thing we're talking about, because it needs it. So we've been talking about this for 5 years, 10 years, right? But the vision that they had for Washington Avenue was incredibly different than the vision that our commission has right now. So the vision and the incentives that they were providing height incentives for office with no off-street parking, right? When we talk about intensity, think if you have an office building on Washington Avenue with no parking. That's what was proposed. And in 2019, they were putting forward co-living micro units with no parking. And then also some groups within the city came up and said, no, we don't even want that, because we don't want any residential component on Washington Avenue, because that'll get in the way of our entertainment district. So I commend the vision of this commission of really pivoting away from the execution style entertainments and the seediness and grittiness that we see on Washington Avenue, and not settling for the status quo. Now it's just fine tuning exactly what we want to see. And I'm really excited about seeing what that vision was 5 years ago, but also all of us kind of seeing that the world has changed, and especially Miami and South Florida, and that we can aspire for better. So Rodney, how does this differentiate, or is this different than the item that was discussed? And apologies for putting you on the spot if you didn't watch, but the budget item that was brought up at the end of the budget meeting this past Wednesday. And maybe that's better answered by the CFO if you aren't hanging on every single word at 9 p.m.
I believe you're addressing Troy, the executive director of the bid, where he had mentioned that there was a request for $30,000 or $40,000
$36,000
to continue for the maintenance and electricity of, I guess, some decorative lighting that they have. I'm not familiar, I'm not sure which department would have that info on what aspects, but obviously there's decorative lighting that the bid does cover, in that Washington Avenue corridor.
Yeah. But Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez is exactly right, not just for Washington Avenue, but the rest of our city. People are not going to take care of our city if it looks like we don't take care of ourselves, right? So I think at a bare minimum, maybe longer-term ambition, we talk about some of the sidewalk lighting, and I love Commissioner Fernandez's idea of public-private partnerships there, not only with lighting, but I saw in 2019, they also discussed the AIPP component for Lincoln Road. And also, again, just to reiterate the difference in our vision, on Lincoln Road in 2019, they approved hotel height increases with no cap limits on the amount of hotels. They go, okay, this should spur the development of 500 hotels. Let's put a cap at 500. They go, no, let's have no cap, right? But we're pivoting away from more and more hotels. But one of the things that they added was contribution to the AIPP fund. And how cool would Washington Avenue be with our new reimagination if we have art along the public rights of way like they have in the design district, right? To highlight this Wolfsonian FIU museum, that we have art in public places out front. But starting to light this street is an immediate low-hanging fruit that we need right away.
So, thank you. Again, it sounds like we're all patting ourselves on the back all the time, but it's such a different vibe from where we've been over the last 21 years since I've been here, and for the last decade in City Hall, that we're all seeing the same problems, but actually finding what we think are good directions to move forward to address them. I think this initiative is an excellent one. I think we're not there yet. Let me tell you why. What I would like to see, we're having conversations about how to revitalize Washington Avenue with mixed-use residential. Think of what Sunset Harbor was when my kids were going to ballet in a garage that was a makeshift ballet studio and a performance space at night. We could have that kind of really cool live, work, play along Washington Avenue. So the good operators who, Twist and some of the clubs that are there, they should still be there. And you can, walk down to your favorite joint and have a great time dancing your head off and then come home. And we're also talking about how to do that and how to revitalize Lincoln Road in similar, not exactly the same, but not totally different ways. And to me, there's sort of a continuum, right? Like you walk up Washington and then you take a left onto Lincoln Road and, to me, this shouldn't be done as a one-off. To me, this should be done as a part of a collective discussion of how to reimagine these parts of the city. We're talking about doing that from a planning perspective and making sure that our incentives that we're talking about are the right ones to get what we want. We're having a sort of an internal conversation that may also turn into an external conversation about that. So I think this should be incorporated in that because I think it is necessary. But I also, to the point, I forget who made it, but Washington Avenue is actually home to so many of our cultural institutions. And I have this vision, I've been talking about it for years, even well before I was considering a run for a commission, when I was actually being approached to be the director of the Washington Avenue bid in another life.
Wow.
I know. Different story for a different time. So you have all these amazing cultural arts institutes that go all the way from South Point up to the Fillmore, and then if you kind of fudge Washington Avenue turning into Collins, you've got Faina, and then you head up to what used to be the historic hotel district, which hopefully will be revitalized with performing arts, little jazz clubs and stuff up there, and then you hit the band shell, and then take a hard left, and you've got the Normandy Fountain, and you've got two incredible fine art galleries that happened organically, and we're going to have the Byron Carlisle. To me, this should be the cultural corridor of Miami Beach, and it is the backbone of who we are, and not just who we are, but how you make your way through our city. And so to me, this is a bigger opportunity, and I want the Washington Avenue bid to step up. I think they haven't had an increase in their dues in 3 or 4 years, and there are significant changes that are afoot. They need to be a part and partner in this effort. And so to me, this is, I won't make the motion to refer because I know that triggers something, but I would suggest we do hold off on this until we can have comprehensive conversations about what the best way forward is to make sure these needs get addressed and then, but factored into the bigger conversation.
Could I say something? I would have no problem deferring this. I would like to actually take this item and defer it for a few months, where we're in September, October, November. I'd like to hear it at the November FERC, and I'm going to tell you why. I want to go out in addition to this lighting and find out with the city what the cost of repairing some of the concrete is, and let me explain why. While changing the zoning is wonderful, and while builders will come in and do it, we're talking 5 years away. And in the interim, I want people to know that we care about the historic district, because right now, what we've really seen, I believe it was a managed decline. It was like zero investment across the historic district. By the way, 10 years ago, you still had lively retail there. Okay, but when you had no police presence and zero investment in any part of the city, not the sidewalks, not the lighting, of course, retail moved out. But I was driving up the nicer part of Washington Avenue further south the other day, and I saw that we had like a retail store open, like Villa Bricant. They're not going to go and even consider opening anything right now if the sidewalk looks like a patchy mishmash. And these expenses to at least change the concrete, on Washington, Collins, and Ocean, and put in new lighting, that is going to make a big difference. And by the way, the people that are coming there are going to see a big difference. I would tell you that we're also stuck because we approved all of this zoning at these luxury projects, the Chavot project, the Ritz-Carlton. You know what they told me? They told me that people are not buying their units because they're walking to Washington and seeing the crap that we have down Washington, and they don't want to invest in the city. And that, to me, is very sad. So saying, I don't want to invest in lighting on Washington. We don't want to fix the sidewalks. Let's change the zoning and wait for developers to, that's too long, because we have these other people who are willing to come here, and they can't close their sales. And that is scary. So I want to help them in some way, and I could defer this to November, do some work to find out a total package price for the sidewalks, and see if we can find some of the GEO bond money on both Ocean Drive to see how we could do this to finally invest some money in our historic districts, which, by the way, it's what makes us famous, iconic. It's why people come here. And by the way, it will go a really long way. I challenge you to walk down and look how awful it looks right now. It looks like we don't care. It looks like, and I'm not saying that you're working with what you have. It's not your fault that you haven't been given direction to maintain it. But now we know that we appreciate our historic district. We are going to, I guess you guys are moving forward, want to build this live, work, and play. But in the interim, too, I want it to look like South of Fifth on the sidewalk.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I need to say something, Mr. Chair. Here we are, Washington Avenue. The sidewalks might not look the cleanest. And there are ways of remediating that through sanitation. And our colleague, Commissioner Suarez, has endeavored in an effort, and I know Public Works is working on this. Our budget, I believe, Mr. CFO, we have 6 positions in our budget to supplement with pressure cleaning in addition to what we have now. But like, for example, here we are, we're talking about possibly looking for more money to redo sidewalks in Washington Avenue when I get a flood of complaints about broken sidewalks in North Beach, for example. About North Beach not having received new sidewalks in years. And so I got North Beach might not be as famous as Washington Avenue, but there we have, a segment of residents. We have an area that we're trying to encourage. You actually have businesses that actually contribute to people's quality of life. And and people complain. People are complaining day in, day out, not about dirty sidewalks, about broken sidewalks and not being able to get through safely through them. And so, if we want to talk about lighting, I'm happy to today to support the lighting. And between today and this going to commission, knowing what commitments really the business owners, the bid on Washington Avenue is willing to make to transform the dangerous feeling that people get when they go there, that here we're trying to remediate through decorative lighting. That's not going to change the way people feel. It is the caliber of the establishment that we have there that's going to truly change how people feel when they go to Washington Avenue. And investing more money on sidewalks, I'd rather see that in North Beach, where North Beach, needs it. And Commissioner Bott, you live up there, you probably got more of the complaints than what I do. And I know I get them daily about the broken sidewalks up there. And thank you, Commissioner Rosa-Gonzalez. I know this is coming from a good place. You really want to see this area improve, but it really has to be both ends of the table coming together and collaborating. And I mean, here I have Lincoln Road sitting in front of us. And the Lincoln Road businesses, they have been working so hard, to improve. They really put money on the table to try to see an improvement there. And there's still much work to be done. But they're like actively out there, Aldo, I got a text message. No, what is it?
Hello.
How do you pronounce it?
Hello.
Okay, I can't pronounce it like the chair does, but
It might very well be aloe. I don't know.
Aloe coming into Lincoln Road. We see new restaurants. It's interesting. This summer I was in Europe, and there's an Italian restaurant on Lincoln Road, and I was in Rome. And in Rome, Robert and I, we were about to go to dinner, and we were looking for restaurants, and I see one of the restaurants that came out highly recommended in Rome was Osteria de Fortuna. And I go on their website, and I'm looking at their website, and I'm like, gosh, this name sounds so familiar. And I'm looking at their website, and I see their locations, something Lincoln Road. I can't remember the exact address. I was like, oh my God, this is Osteria de Fortuna. That's on Lincoln Road. And so like you see the commitment to bring in great caliber establishments in a place like Lincoln Road, and is why I've never held back from making more investments on Lincoln Road to help with that. But I need to see the same level of commitment from these property owners on Washington Avenue.
So are you voting for or against?
I am voting for this today at committee, but between today and this going back to the city commission, I'm making it very clear. I need to understand what is the commitment, what is the plan that Washington Avenue is committing to see the transformation that we need on those businesses. Otherwise, I'm making it very clear today. Do not count with my support at the city commission.
Commissioner Bott.
So just for clarification, I thought there was a motion to defer until November, so, yeah.
There is, I don't know, I was outside the
That's okay,
chamber.
but so I have, if I might, so I don't disagree, Vice Mayor Fernandez. I don't disagree with your comments. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, and I do think that it's important to take the next 2 or 3 months to figure out what could be done when, how much, who's paying for what. We do need to see the Washington Avenue bid step up and do more in terms of funding things like this or leading the charge. I'm not sure what the mechanics are, but I don't think it's a mutually exclusive conversation, right? We know, and we are more attentive to the issues that are plaguing the city from north to south. And there are parts of the city that are doing just fine, and there are parts of the city that need some TLC. This is a bigger, the Washington Avenue conversation is a bigger sort of transformational economic impact, affordable housing, missing middle kind of conversation. And I think this is one of the beginnings of it, along with the stuff that we've talked, hang on one second, along with the stuff that we've talked about at commission, that we're talking about incentivizing different kinds of development. At the same time, we know for a fact, 'cause I trip over it myself all the time, that there are just eons, blocks upon blocks of areas in North Beach where the lights are out, and it floods on, if there's a sprinkling, it floods because there aren't the right drainage things set up for what exists now. And, there are like a million things going, that have gone unattended in North Beach. And so I don't want to take away from how important this is, but I share my colleagues' concern about how important it is to do the basic blocking and tackling on maintenance of what we have in areas where it's not an economic driving, game changer investment. They're both important. They both need to be attended to.
Can I ask a question? I know that I said that I would defer it to November, but if Commissioner Fernandez is willing to support it, here's what I would proffer. If we pass this today, today. If we pass it today and in October, you'll have that lighting for the season when our guests come, and they're not going to walk. It's going to go a long way to be.
I'll support the median lighting.
Median,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like the tree lighting in the median. How much is that in the whole?
272. That also.
Okay, you know what, let's start with that. Let's start with the 272. I'd like it all done, but if we can't do, if we can't do the all of the tree lights, so we're gonna be, where's the 272 in here? I'm looking at it, east and
Page
west.
140.
140. Okay, the number, like, 145?
No, on page 140, it says 5th to 17th Street, median trees.
The 272. Let's do the median trees, and then here is a few things that I would like to say. Commissioner Fernandez, I hate the idea of any sidewalk in our city being busted. And if it was up to me, I'd have somebody just going around and only replacing pieces of sidewalks.
I mean, I report
that were
them constantly on the app. I see it,
I
I
mean,
trip
well,
over
you
it,
know
I
what?
report it.
Well, I think you need, maybe we hire a dedicated sidewalk person with a team. No, I'm not joking.
An area manager.
Do nothing every single day, but
Only
go
somebody would
around
sponsor that.
and replace sidewalks so that you don't have that patchwork. Between now, if we approve the 272 today to move forward to the October meeting, I would also like to see what we could do in terms of sidewalks. I think it's so important.
And
I
Maria,
just ask-
can,
You know-
can you give us the timeline? Because there is $10 million of GEO bond funding to do exactly all of this. No,
Do it today for
Hello.
the season. How long would it take you, Brian?
Maria, what time are you leaving today? Can you go do that?
Okay. Maria Hernandez, interim ACM and still over the GEO bond. So we have a lot of money in the GEO bond to do everything that you guys are talking about. We have $10 million for Washington Avenue. That is for a complete redo of Washington Avenue above ground, only above ground, not underground. That includes sidewalks, trees, lighting, all of that, okay? The same for Ocean Drive, we have $20 million, and that is in design as we speak. So that's gonna come in front of you very soon. In addition to that, we have, thanks to the decisions of the commission, remember that we also have these $19.8 million that we took from tranche 2, put them into tranche 1 for sidewalks, streets, trees, seawalls, and all kinds of stuff. So those funds, the ones that are specific for sidewalks and streets, well, let's just talk sidewalks, are to repair broken sidewalks, sidewalks that don't meet ADA, that, you know, how sometimes they get a little bit higher. It's to go around the entire city fixing all of that. And we have a plan to do it for the next 5 years.
Yes, when?
And
When do we start?
It's in the works. I mean, we're doing it now. And we're doing it in North Beach, South Beach. I would be more than happy to show the maps. We have it all mapped
Could
out.
you follow up with a letter to LTC?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
I'll let you know. And
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Since we have this above ground money for Washington Avenue, and by the way, we had done all sorts of crazy designs for Washington, which have never come to fruition. How would you guys feel about just saying, go for it? Take the 10 million and within the next 6 months, just replace all the sidewalks,
Okay.
put in new lighting. It's going to encourage developers who want to build there, because right now they're going to come there and they're going to see what you got. And by the way, the homeless that are there, and the element that's there, when you start to break all of that up, they're going to go someplace else. They are. We're going to say Washington Avenue is no longer, and by the way, the police officers who don't want to walk that beat because it is so disgusting, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. We have the money, and we're just saying we're going to wait. I'm just so sick of waiting because I've been sitting here for 10 years waiting. Why don't we just do it? Let's all sponsor it. All four of us. Sponsor it in October. Get it done. Michael Chabot is going to thank you because he's in deep with buyers who are canceling. The owners of the Ritz-Carlton who have buyers who are canceling are going to thank you. The owners of the Shore Club and the Delano are going to thank you. The owners of the Lowe's, because they can't handle how disgusting it looks anymore. And either can I.
May I ask a couple of questions?
Yes.
Okay, how did we go from $30 million from Troy last week to $273,000 today on this median lighting thing? Like, what's up with that? And that's my first question. I do want an answer for that. But my second point is, I agree that this needs to happen, and I'm very eager to see the follow-up, because we're working on it today, and we have a plan, and in the next 5 years, to me, are not, I know they're just turns of phrase, so I'm sure you do have a plan that you are working on now, and it will be done within the next 5 years. But it would be great to be able to turn around and say, hey, this part of North Beach, you're, like, next March, this whole area is gonna be replaced, so hang tight, right? But also, that's a different thing from the spot fixes, right? It's one thing to go in and replace sidewalks, which you do have to plan for, it takes a long time, there's permitting, whatever needs to happen, but also it would be great to have, you know, like, do a sweep of the city, and like any place that something's broken, have somebody just come fix it, because it doesn't have to be a 20-year fix, it needs to be, you know, two month or 2-year fix, and that's better than not. But I still want us to proceed with some forethought that we are reimagining entire stretches of our city. And yes, we have the money of $10 million to do a lot of change now, which is great. So maybe we can do this, you know, it's not the full $10 million, and maybe this is the thing that is the catalyst. But I don't want to spend $10 million over the next year, starting, let's say, in 2 weeks, and, you know, for the next year. And then have to undo all that in 3 years when we decide to do something different. So I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying take the 5 minutes, not you, I'm looking at you, but I'm not saying to you, Kristen. I'm saying for us to take the month or 2 months or whatever it is going to be, and maybe there's some things that we can do now to get to your point about doing it before season, but before we spend millions and millions of dollars, that may not be the best use of those millions of dollars if we just have 2 or 3 months to have a conversation. That's what I'm encouraging. So if there's a quick, you know, the median trees and power washing the sidewalks between now and the start of season, let's do that, but not spend $10 million on something that's going to be maybe not the right thing.
Okay, so my motion on this will be to move forward the 272 today. But between now,
wait, sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, and I am
clarify.
interrupting you. I wanted to get the answer about how it went from $30,000 to 272 before we.
it's different. It was the whole Washington Avenue. He just wanted maintenance for one section. That's what the difference is.
That's
And
the difference.
by the way, we passed this in what, 2018?
Yes.
2018. Here's what I would tell you. I also had a conversation with Jonathan Plutek, who's desperate for the lighting. He said, because here's the thing, we have a very ambitious plan.
Don't we have lighting on
No,
Ocean Drive?
no, there is no lighting. It's
The
police
raptors?
lighting. No. What he wants to do is the permanent lighting. He would like to take, and I'm bringing an item forward. I'm working with him. He's going to reach out and speak to you. Why? Because the complete redesign is not funded, and we know that. We got like 120 million. We have 20 million. Here is what I would ask. I mean, the property owners are saying, please, give us the lighting. Like, let's move forward the 272 today to the full commission. But between now and the next meeting, Maria, could you just get us a price? And here's what I would like. I would just like a price for just complete sidewalk replacement along Washington. Just replace what we have. What would that cost? So this would be my motion. Move forward the 272, but in the interim, find out what the cost would be for new sidewalks and also new poles.
Let me just make one clarification, because I want to make sure we're clear. Because GO bonds are paid over 30 years through taxes, we cannot use the money for anything that is temporary. So temporary lighting, string lights, that sort of thing, cannot be GO bond funded. However, new poles, new acorns that get, updated, acorn lights, of course, the sidewalks, the streets, trees, all of that can be included in the GO bond,
But I kind of like the way that the direction here is going. Thank you for that, Maria, where we're going to get some of the low-hanging fruit, right?
Right.
It is
We can
just
do quick
unacceptable.
wins. We can do
Exactly.
quick wins for them.
We'll
Yeah.
do the median lighting. Let's push that forward. It's absolutely critical. Commissioner's right. We're losing $15 million real estate sales. I got a call saying, I sold a condo to a person. They came and took a walk down Washington Avenue, and they canceled. Commissioner Magazine, you're an ambassador of the city. Can you just tell them how great Miami Beach is, right? And that's what I tried doing. So let's do the low-hanging fruit, and then really let's think about how. One thing this city just has historically not done a good job at, is really going through the public-private partnership collaboratively, right? So if we have multiple things happening in one area, we don't work well in tandem. We're just piecemealing things. This is so incredibly exciting. Let's get the low-hanging fruit. Let's get this median light in today, so we have it for the season. And then we're talking about this $10 million geo bond and the reimagination of Washington Avenue. Let's do this hand in hand for the medium and longer term future of our city.
And part of my motion, just to get a price, apart from moving forward the lighting, could you come back next month with an estimate? Sidewalk replacement, up and down, new lighting poles.
Yeah, I don't think that's very
Up and down
difficult.
the
That's a
street. I guarantee
boilerplate
you,
kind of
you
thing.
do that, you're gonna see the criminal element is gonna go away. Police are gonna be out and feel pride in the area. The shop owners are gonna begin to take care of their stores. Retail outlets that currently don't wanna be on Washington might reconsider it. And let's finally begin to revitalize, in addition to zoning incentives, let's revitalize the area. Yeah?
As long as it's not.
And let's all
either-
sponsor it.
yeah.
Can we all sponsor it? Is that okay with you guys? Can you make us all sponsors of
If
this?
it's not an either or, because,
And
you know,
another thing about the bonds as well, whatever we do should not be undone. Because again, it's about 30 years. So if we put in lighting, it shouldn't be undone later down the road. It's
just we need
something
to
that
do-
should be permanent.
Well, and
It's part of
hopefully
the
it will
plan.
be. I mean, if we
Yeah.
put in new poles, they're gonna be
Mhm.
permanent. You need to do it anyway. It needs an update, you know,
Right.
it's just a lighting pole. It's replacing something ugly with something beautiful. It's a start.
Commissioner Magazine, there's a caller on the line.
Commissioner Bott, and then we'll go to the call.
So just a quick question, since we're talking about replacing lighting poles. Lighting capability and aesthetics and need and sort of what we all collectively think is interesting as lighting has changed dramatically in the last 5 years, let alone 15 or 50. Are there ways to upgrade the lighting as we go through, not just Washington Avenue, but citywide, where it's appropriate, like not in a residential neighborhood necessarily, but where we can control the temperature of the light? So for sea turtle season, you know, that's one thing, but also for, you know, Art Basel, we could have Art Basel colors, and we could, you know, so they still are functional, but we can make them part of our branding. And again, not in residential neighborhoods. I'm not that crazy. But in, you know, on Ocean Drive and along Lincoln Road and Washington and Collins in certain areas, like, let's think proactively about how to use the infrastructure that we're going to be investing in, so that, you know, it's not like, oh, we need to wrap more trees with lights that break every 5 minutes, and you know, it's a whole drama. Let's, you know, for anybody who's out there, I want to start a business, and I need a good engineer to provide solar-powered lights that don't have to be replaced every year, and I'm sure municipalities around the country would jump all over them. So somebody get that business going. But anyhow,
I'm sure we can look into that.
Yes, let's be prospective.
Natalie, let's go to the public.
Wayne, please unmute yourself.
Hey, I love you all, and I'm really impressed. I think her name is Maria. She's very well spoken and understands the dynamics of the situation in Miami Beach. There's a couple of thoughts that I have that I want to share with you. One is the GO bond did not really fund effectively updating the streets and sidewalks and lighting in Miami Beach, especially the commercial districts, effectively. It's a very small percentage of the GO bond, and we need more. The sidewalks, the streets, you know, the cleaning, the environmental paper and bottles, they get picked up nicely by DPW, but the streets are dirty, the streets are cracked, they're old. Where it's paved, it's beautiful, and it looks so much different where it's recently paved. But too many of our streets aren't, and too many of our sidewalks aren't new, and we need to upgrade that part of our city. And you know, our budget, our $1 billion budget, is not enough for those kind of improvements. We spend it on other things, which I don't think dollar for dollar is as effective as spending it on those kind of things to improve the quality of life of residents. So I think in a general sense, you have to look at that. and, you know, what percentage of our budget should go to those things like streets and sidewalks and lighting and Ocean Drive and Lincoln Road. And speaking of Lincoln Road, what really disgusts me, and I hope that you guys can fix this because it's only a few $1,000s, the ponds in the center of Lincoln Road haven't been cleaned in, I would suspect, 15 years. They're disgusting. I used to clean my pond in my backyard personally every year and, you know, put
Thank
lily
you,
pads
Wayne.
in, and it was beautiful.
All right, so where are we going to go with this? I believe that we're going to make a motion to move forward with the median tree lighting, and then we will work collectively to come back with something more comprehensive.
Yes, for even as soon as next month, poles and sidewalks. I
I'll
would say,
prepare, and I'm sorry, and I'll prepare an LTC showing you the maps, that it's gonna show you every street in the Geo Bond that we have paved in the past and the ones that we're paving in the future, as well as all the sidewalks, so both.
oh, streets being paved, Washington being paved was already a big
Yeah.
maneuver. You do the poles, you do the sidewalks, it's a whole new game. All right,
Okay.
I look forward to next month then.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I may, Chair.
You may.
So I have this item to return to FERC, just to check, is October, because, is that enough turnaround time? Because the item is actually due in like 2 weeks, so would you have enough time to do that? Just to make sure that, getting estimates on this, to return to FERC on the Washington Avenue sidewalk replacement project and a street level, street lighting.
I think we need November.
November. Would it be
Yeah, Brad is
acceptable
telling me. I
that
think we
November to
need
have the proper-
November.
Okay,
Um,
so to return to FERC in November for an update, an LTC would be issued on street paving and sidewalk replacement program. And then the item about returning to commission on the median at 272 is obviously unfunded. So we'll have to have a conversation about funding that. That is not GEO bond eligible. So if that went to commission in October, I think just like the prior Wolfsonian item, it would be funded through the November budget amendment, which deals with the rollover, which would be, you know, that those dollars were dedicated to go to our capital projects. We would just reduce that amount going to our capital projects, which is.
Yep. So, perfect. Yeah? You were just looking for a yes?
We can do that. So we'll show it as returning to commission favorable recommendation for the median project.
So 2 items that I'm looking at going forward are going to be discussion on parking. And if Commissioner Fernandez is around, I would love to have him involved because I think this is going to be interest to all of us. And that is NB 15, is that?
Yes.
Yep. And then also we have the Barclay. Is there anybody in the audience or online that had critical items? Because I'm not sure if we're going to get to much more than either of those 2.
I think the Barclay team is here.
We're here, let's get the parking, and then, yes, but we'll need them for the Barclay as well.
So I will, MB
Alex,
15.
if you're out there. Louis, what was the one staff asked to be called? Is the composting item quick? 17?
Yes, I believe it's a quick
Yeah, okay,
update.
let's do that.
We'll do so I'll read, MB 17, referral to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee to discuss, take action on favorable land use and sustainability committee recommendation for potential composting program, and more specifically to expand the home composting for residents and at youth and recreation centers with associated funding requirements, NB 17.
Good morning, commissioners. Yes, we are on. Hi, good morning. My name is Juanita Allesteros. I'm the Sustainability and Resilience Manager. This item comes to us through, in February, there was a discussion at City Commission, that was referred to land use. At land use, there was a discussion which recommended staff to explore 4 options, which we did. Brought it back to land use in June, at which point 2 options were preferred, and they recommended bringing it to finance, which is where we are now. So our team was really creative in looking at different options for composting. This is about kind of expanding access to composting for our community. We did have direction to explore curbside pickup, which we did look into it. Right now, that's not really possible. So what we're bringing forward to you now is really what's possible for our community, given the context that Miami-Dade County does not have authorized composting facilities. They are working on a zero waste plan. They are working on this. So this is really about, in the meantime, what can we do as a community? These options that we're presenting to you now supplement the larger flagship community composting hubs that we have with our partner, the Miami Beach Botanical Garden. So that is our North Beach composting hub, the composting at the Botanical Gardens, and right now we have in development a location in Mid Beach at 40th and Chase parking lot, and so that is still in development. So what is being recommended here are two options. One are small-scale countertop equipment for households. The other one is large-scale equipment for youth centers. This gives us the opportunity to really test how this meets the community's needs. It's really meant as a pilot. This does help the reduction of food waste. It increases community interest in composting and reduces greenhouse emissions through the creation of nutrient-rich soil amendment. So the two options that are presented here, one is we can work with vendors to look at equipment that is small scale kind of countertop machines for residents. We propose that we could see if there could be a discount for homeowners, and we offer a rebate of say like $100. We purchase maybe 20 to spark interest, and that would come with a cost of up to $50,200.
And have we spoken with the mayor's office? I know he's a sponsor, or any representatives here. I want to see what direction he wants. I don't feel strongly either way. I don't know if staff or administration says, hey, we're 90% in favor of this one, 10% here, or you're kind of just putting both of those out there with equal weighting?
We are putting both of these options out here with equal weighting for your review. We have not spoken with the mayor's office on this. We have spoken with Parks and with Facilities Department to make sure that the city staff is in alignment for this, but we have not presented this directly to the mayor. It has been just through commission and committees.
Perhaps we defer this for a month. We ask for direction from the mayor's office. His item, I don't want to go in a direction that, he's not aligned with.
Okay, so the item could return next month. The administration will discuss with the mayor what direction he has, and just if I can. So as we're wrapping up 25, as we start having some of these expenditure items, there's also that opportunity going forward is if there's things that are supportive that could wait, things could be recommended to become a budget priority for the 2026 budget process.
Just trying to leave that part unsaid, but, and just achieve that with a deferral, but okay.
So we'll show this item deferred until the administration gets with the mayor's office, or a mayor's representative is here next month to perhaps weigh in. Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
I'm thinking we wrap up by 1:30, so let's try and get the parking quick. I'm actually going to defer. No, Jose, hear me all out. Come up. You heard me say defer, but defer what I want to get to. I'm going to follow up with 3 or 4 questions I'm going to send you with some homework for, but I'm going to use this item that we had on the agenda as a placeholder to get to something that's a little more pertinent. The parking update that we've all seen front and center with the increase in rates. So let's use this as a conversation, as long as I don't get kicked under the table by legal for doing so, as a leeway into talking about some of those parking rate increases. As a bit of background, we got a letter to commission from the city manager last Friday saying effective, I believe, October 1st, we would be seeing parking rate increases. I'll let you go through the details of what those are, but let's not beat that to death. There's a bifurcation between some parking increases for tourists, parking increases for residents. This was not any type of action or vote or measure taken by anybody on this body. I went back and researched the ordinance. This was a result of a 2019 vote. Again, a video I watched last night. It was very eventful. And I think there's a collective will here, given inflationary pressures that have just hit residents from the well-to-do to our most at need. everybody is feeling the effects of inflationary pressures, which hopefully are going to begin subsiding. But the timing of residential parking rate increase is just not ideal. So without putting words into my colleagues' mouths, I'll let them all speak for themselves. But I know
And
me
if-
personally, I think there's a collective will to essentially shelve a residential parking increase at this moment.
If I may jump in for a moment, there will be an item on next Wednesday's agenda. Commissioner Fernandez and Commissioner Suarez are proposing to repeal basically the increase for residents. And most of you, actually, I think all of you have joined as co-sponsors. I think it might be preferable not to discuss the item at this committee because it really wasn't part of the titles or the agenda. So I would recommend that if that's okay with everyone.
And Mr. Chair, if you want to join as a co-prime, I completely welcome you, because I think we have a resolution on the table, I think for Wednesday, to stop the increase from taking effect October 1st, or giving that directive to the city administration. Then separately, it's an amendment to repeal the 2019 legislation, which does these 5-year, fuacata, increases that just hit people, out of left field. If you want to join us.
Yeah, I spoke with our Assistant City Manager Williams, our Transportation Director Jose yesterday about 4 p.m. And conveyed that as well, so yes.
Rick, can we do that?
Can we add him as a co-prime?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, please.
I think I'm already a code.
Do we want to have 7 co-primes? Is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're moving in the direction of free parking for
I
this.
can't speak for other commissioners, but I know it sounds, Commissioner Magazine wants to be a co-prime, Commissioner Wilson Gonzalez wants to be a co-prime, and Commissioner Bod wants to be a co-prime.
Everyone has said that they're very interested in this item, so.
Okay, yeah, so let's do that then.
Perfect.
And Jose, I will follow up with, I don't know what the reverse of an LTC is, a letter from the commission to the parking director, but I have about 3 or 4 things that I'd like to see when this item continues that I'll ask you to come back with.
Okay.
Okay?
And by the way, Commissioner Magazine, your comments on the Miami Herald were on point. You've advocated for our residents, and thank you for using your position as chair in this committee today to once again raise the alarm about this very troublesome increase. It's, as you mentioned, it was a 2019 policy. None of us voted on this. It's something that we've inherited, and I'm grateful that today you've used your meeting to introduce this topic, because we need to look out for people during these times when they're being financially burdened.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. My first note to self is going to read what my comments in the Miami Herald are, because I haven't seen it, but thank you for alerting me. Let's move on to an item that has been in this commission that long predates me, and I believe anybody else here. Something I think we're all collectively very excited. I see community members here. We've all been involved in this, the Barclay.
I'll read in
One
the,
person it does not predate, our Assistant City Manager, right? You were there from the beginning?
Well, the city has owned the property since 2015, so, no.
MB1, update on negotiations with 1940 Barclay Partners LLC pursuant to request for proposal RFP number 2023-115-KB for the redevelopment of the city-owned property located at 1940 Park Avenue, the Barclay, for development and ground lease agreement, MB1.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair and Commissioners. Raquel Williams, Assistant City Manager. The item before you provides a summary of the salient terms negotiated with the developer for the Barclay pursuant to a solicitation process as directed by the City Commission. The item before you also provides a summary of the scope of the project. And I just want to summarize by saying that we have taken the directives of this committee to heart, and the project before you checks all 4 of the boxes that this committee has referenced as being a priority. That includes preservation, that includes housing affordability, that includes relevant zoning matters, as well as the financial component of the project. The project proposed would preserve the existing 3-story building at 1940 Park Avenue, The project would also encompass a new building that would be 100 feet, which is above the 75 feet permitted by the code. The project also incorporates a increase to the existing allowable FAR for the site. And that FAR that's being requested is 2.97, which is about 25% above what is permitted. The project includes 71% market rate units and 29% affordable and workforce units. The affordability level includes 30% area median income units as well as 120% area median income units. The project would have market rate as the primary unit type. The project would also have ground floor commercial, about 6,000 square feet. The project includes parking, which has not yet been fully determined as to what would be required, as we would need to go through further due diligence with the planning department. The developer has provided a proposal that includes a few design options. The planning department has indicated that option 1 is the most preferred option as a starting point for further negotiations and due diligence. In terms of the financial aspects of the project, which is the most relevant to this committee, the project would include a $6 million upfront payment as discussed by this committee and approved by the commission on April 3rd. The project also includes guaranteed annual rent starting at $52,000 approximately per year. It would increase by CPI with a minimum threshold of 2% and a maximum of 3%. The project would also include 1% net operating income participation and 1% participation on any transfer or sale occurring after the first 10 years. Over the 99 years of the lease, the annual guaranteed rent, including the upfront payment, would be approximately $21 million. The estimate of the net operating income for the 99 years is about $17 million. The commission has supported that $6 million upfront payment, and we were directed to work off of what we called option 2 at the time when this was first brought to the Finance Committee. At this time, we are seeking support from this committee to bring the terms as indicated in the memorandum to the City Commission to authorize the negotiation of a development agreement and a ground lease. Note that any increase to FAR will require a 6/7 vote of the City Commission. The height increase being proposed also requires a 5/7 vote of the City Commission. So there are other steps along the path for this project to get to finalization. We anticipate that we could bring the second reading of the development agreement and ground lease to the commission in spring of 2025, just to give you an idea of the time frame that it would take, because the project would need to go to the land use committee, the planning board, there would have to be a community meeting as part of the FAR increase. So that just gives you a scope of when we could bring this in for a final landing. The developer would then have to go through the entitlement process and get their building permit. The developer is here today. It is also my understanding that the developer presented to the Collins Park Neighborhood Association and that the association is in support, and I believe a representative of the association is also present today. PJ has the design rendering available if you would like to see option 1, which is what the administration is supportive of as a starting point. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Assistant City Manager. Just fabulous years of work on this. I really like incorporating basically the feedback that was important to all of my colleagues, especially this upfront payment. 2 quick questions. Given the significant upfront payment, I don't want to just have that float into purgatory. We have some very pressing capital needs here. We have underfunded needs for the fire station that I know is incredibly important to some of my colleagues. We just talked about unfunded needs for Washington Avenue and Lincoln Road, both areas that this property somewhat abuts. Is there a way to have a bifurcated fund to take that $6 million and say, we're not just going to go put it into the abyss, we're actually going to have a 1-for-1 usage that we're able to say, here's that $6 million, this is what it gets us for consideration for FAR and height increases?
So this committee could recommend, and the City Commission could dictate the way that the $6 million upfront payment would be allocated. And that has been done in prior projects, so that's not something that is outside of the scope of what the city has done before.
Excellent. And my final question, I'll push it over to my colleague. Two questions, and then I'll put it over to my colleagues. One, you talked about the benefits that the city is getting. Are we able to assign or assess a value? And it's a shame Debbie's not here, but we didn't ask her base. What we're essentially getting on a direct monetary basis that a third party is restoring this architectural and historic treasure that we have?
Well, based on our recent estimate, and by recent I mean about a year ago now perhaps, we anticipated that if the city were to redevelop the project as is and maintain the three-story building, it would cost us anywhere between $22.5 million and upwards of $25 million. And so this would allow the city to not have that cost burden and place that directly on the developer.
Excellent. So I think it's incumbent upon us to consider that for the benefit that we're receiving. And last question, I'll hand it over to my colleagues. I don't want there to be too many cooks in the kitchen, so I'm going to be more hands-off. Timing-wise, I think that's most critical because we've heard loud and clear from facilities, from Debbie Tackett, from the development team, and really from the neighborhood, right? Like, one of our highest priorities is making sure that we can preserve this piece, this building. And every day that goes by, from my elementary assessment, that likelihood becomes less and less, right? The more months we have to defer and the more boards where we need 2 months in between, are there any ways that we can streamline some of these processes? Because timing is of the essence, one, for that element, and two, for the neighborhood. This is just, we heard the police talk about how many police calls have been in this area. This is not fair to the neighborhood that should have this activated, have it part of their community. I know what it was like to live next to a dirt hole for 8 years. And then we were just like, give us anything. You know, as long as it's not this. So I want to be sure that we're being as fair and efficient to the neighboring community as well that wants to see this site activated. So even if it's not something you're ready to pounce, yeah?
I can chime in a little bit.
Please.
So this committee, as well as the commission, gave a policy recommendation that included a $6 million upfront payment and based the award on option 2 as presented to the Finance Committee and the Commission. And so that included an increased FAR, increased height to allow for additional units. There was an option that was presented at committee that included no upfront payment, no annual payment, no net operating income participation, no transfer participation, and a subsidy from the city of about $4 million that would allow for the developer to redevelop the project, keep the three-story structure, renovate it. The 66 existing units would probably turn into 33, and they would likely all be affordable. The committee and the commission did not decide to go forward in that
reading the
direction.
tea leaves, I would say that that's probably not on the table.
Right. So in essence, any project that would include any land development regulation waivers or amendments to the comprehensive plan or increased FAR will require those additional steps at those other bodies, including the Land Use Committee and the Planning Board.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'll hand it over to my colleagues.
A couple of questions and a comment. In terms of the additional steps, and I understand that they need to happen, but I think typically the steps are with 2 months in between. Is there a way that to expedite this process, we can do 1 month in between instead of 2? I don't know if that impinges on the developer's ability to prepare adequately, but if that's not an undue burden, I think that would be good so that we could catch up from the years that we've been vacillating on this, and we could just move this forward. I would suggest that, I have a question based on your comments about the parking requirements. If those aren't set yet, and we know that a lot of the units are going to be some type of workforce or affordable housing, can we minimize the parking requirements from what they used to be and thereby make maybe the overall cost of this project less expensive? And maybe there's, again, I'm not negotiating from the dais, but if we don't need to spend, as you know, collectively $1 bazillion on, you know, a ton of parking spots. There are parking lots all over the place around there, and we are trying to disincentivize. It's not a war on cars, but we know if our population is coming in this I'm sorry, I'm trying to be very precise with my words. If we know the types of residents we're going to be appealing to with this development, right? It's not sort of, oh, I don't know, we're going to build it for, right, seniors and, you know, people who may not live here full-time for the more market rate affordable things, they might not keep a car here. I think we have an opportunity to minimize the parking impact in a way that won't affect negatively the people who might need cars in other places on other projects. That would make the overall cost better. Maybe there's an opportunity to sweeten the pot a little bit and, you know, put a little bit more money into maybe multimodal transportation issues. I'll let you guys figure that out, but I wanted to really focus on that significantly. I know the city has said option one. I don't want the city to be in the business of designing this. I'll let, obviously, the people who are skilled at this with Debbie Tackett and MDPL and all the people weigh in on this. I want to be cautious about that. I know also that this has been a very emotional topic for residents who live adjacent to it, to, you know, public safety proponents who know that it's been a big source of calls for service. You know, having been a board member of MDPL for years and on the planning board in the historic preservation seat, I'm very mindful of how important it is to protect the building. And I know that some of my colleagues on the commission have really prioritized that as well. I'm happy that we have come to this place finally. I think it is a good outcome. You know, is everybody getting everything they want? Of course not. But, you know, that's the definition of compromise. And I think this is a very good one. And I want to see this move forward as quickly and as thoughtfully as possible. I want the design of the new building to really elevate the original building. I don't want it to overwhelm and overshadow, literally and figuratively, but I want it to be a backdrop for the jewel that is this building. And the fact that we're getting more units out of it than we would if we just developed it ourselves. We are getting the cost of the redevelopment being paid for by the developer, and we're getting, that's not the design. No. Look in your handouts.
PJ,
and also the
PJ,
designs that are in
bring
your
up the
handouts are
design,
also
option
not
one.
the designs. So I'm fully supportive. I would make a motion to approve this, and if we can expedite the time between committee meetings, I would go forward.
The administration will certainly do everything possible to expedite all the approvals that will be required, and we will work with the developer and their architect to make sure that we can try to hit those milestones. As to the parking, there is some parking that is anticipated to be a part of the project, and we can certainly negotiate reductions to the parking requirement, and those would be brought forward to the planning board and to the land use committee if a waiver is being required or a reduction to the parking requirement is being requested.
Yeah, what is the going rate for parking, to build a parking spot right now, $68,000?
The last time I looked at this, it was about $40,000 a space.
That number for like 15 years.
But
Go ahead,
the
Commissioner
cost
Ross.
of the space
Yeah,
also
yeah.
need to consider, not just the cost of construction, but the cost of the space.
Yeah, because then the building can be lower.
Yeah.
Everybody happier.
well, I love the fact that the developer is going to move forward and give us the $6 million that we spent on it.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea. I will let you know in advance that I'm not going to spot zone and increase FAR across different buildings in Miami Beach without some sort of a plan. One of the reasons why, when I left City Hall yesterday, I couldn't even get to 41st Street, and we're in September, which is one of our really empty months. So it's going to be a big challenge because they're going to have to get unanimous support for a spot zoning FAR increase that I'm not supporting. So, you know, and the reason I'm not supporting it is because you have zero idea of the impact of all of the current developments that are currently going up. And I live in a neighborhood, and all of Mid Beach lives in single-family homes, and we can't get anywhere. And if there was a reliable mass transit, I'd say to you, fine. And I'm going to bring up my real estate client only one more time, because it was very interesting to see this weekend that his one comment to me, and one of the reasons why he might not move to Miami Beach, is because He couldn't get a bus. He said that mass transit was so unreliable that, that it was disturbing to him. He doesn't want to have a car. So we have, you know, an unreliable mass transit that's not working. We don't have a comprehensive plan. You've got thousands of units in the pipeline, and I can't even get home at night. So I'm just not going to randomly upzone the whole city, building by building, one building here, one building there. Let's give some height over there to the Stanton. We just gave them an FAR increase. Now let's give them a huge FAR increase. I'm not doing it, not without a comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chair.
And one of the reasons why I'm not doing it is because my constituents don't want it, and I know that they don't want it. I don't know how your constituents feel, but I guarantee you that like 99% of my constituents have told me, literally written and taken the time to tell me, and called, they don't want it. So I'm not going to do what they don't want. And it's not me. Don't get mad at me. You can get angry at my constituents, my constituency, or the residents that have lived here their entire lives, but I'm not doing it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. And I know there's a motion and a second on the table, and I know that you want to end this meeting by 1:30. The one thing that I also know, and I agree with you, our constituents are very concerned about growth. Our constituents are also very concerned about traffic. Our constituents are also very concerned about housing and affordability, and they're asking us to address these issues. Our constituents are also concerned about criminal activity happening in this property and are asking us to do something with this property. Our constituents are also concerned with the preservation of historic buildings from demolition, from not being upkept properly. These are things that coexist. Concerns about development, but also concerns about all these other issues. How do we address the traffic issue of you not being able to get to 41st Street at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m.? Well, if we are able to provide people the ability to live in our city and avoid them having to be clogging our outbound lanes on 41st Street, on the MacArthur, on the Tuttle during peak hours, we need to give them the ability to live here. How do we address the housing affordability issue in our city? By leveraging public assets like these that were acquired to provide public housing at an affordable rate to our residents and to our workforce. How do we achieve the preservation of publicly owned historic buildings? By partnering up with entities that can actually put the capital to engage in these expensive renovations. This is how we address holistically a lot of the concerns that our constituents have. And it all cannot be done by the government. We just can't afford to do it all. I want to thank our negotiating team, including our Assistant City Manager, Rick L. Williams, because one of the key things for me was, number one, to ensure the participation of the Miami Beach Housing Authority, who we trust to be a partner in the provision of housing in our city. And I believe that the Miami Beach Housing Authority, Madam Manager, is participating in this. Is that correct?
That is the intent of the developer, to have an equity partnership with the Housing Authority to the tune of 20%. And
Okay.
so the Housing Authority would pay for their equity stake, and they would also participate in the income generated from the project.
So I would imagine their participation in part is almost an endorsement of this project by default, I would imagine.
That is correct. And the project will include 14 units at 30% AMI, and the likelihood is that the Housing Authority will provide the housing vouchers that will benefit those units.
Okay. And then the other thing that I wanted to make sure, because of the long-term nature of this lease, we're not selling the property, but we're not going to have the property. It's going to, we're in essence transferring it to a private entity for 99 years. Though it's not a sale, the perception is often created that these transactions are a sale.
So I wanted to make sure that the city got as close to the property value as it could as an upfront payment. What is the and I'm sorry, colleagues, when there's a side conversation going on, my ADD is horrible and I get distracted and I can't concentrate.
I
on what's
apologize.
going- No, it's fine. I do it too, so I'm sorry. Yeah. I just got distracted. I'm sorry. What is the appraised value of the property?
So the last appraisal that we did was in December of 2022, and at that time, the appraised value was 9.1 million fee simple.
Okay.
We also, I do want to highlight that the RDA did contribute 5.6 million to acquiring the property. So the 6 million upfront payment certainly covers the RDA's investment in the property.
Right, and that's something I wanted to highlight because at the beginning of this negotiation, how much upfront payment was being offered to the city?
1.5 million.
1.5 million. So we've been able, even though this is not a sale of the property, we've been able to go up significantly in an upfront payment that the city will be receiving for a project that is going to deliver a public need, not just in preservation of a publicly owned asset, but in the delivery of much needed housing and set-asides for affordable and workforce. And so the only thing I would ask is, Madam Manager, we've had this conversation. I'm going to support this today. I think we're moving in the right direction. There's two things that I'm just going to say, and you and I have had this conversation. I think you've shared it, is I think that the moment we move forward with this and we take this property completely off the table and, you know, we're entering into an engagement with this team, is that the city does get some sort of a deposit with certain benchmarks in place, because I do know that as part of the proposal, they're seeking to get other subsidies out there. That could take time. So I just want to make sure that we set certain benchmarks so that the property doesn't sit empty, so that we encourage them to move forward on a timely manner. The second thing that I would like us to endeavor in is, you know, since we only have 30% of the property set aside for workforce or affordable housing, I want to make sure that the remaining 70% that remains at market rate has some sort of a cap in terms of AMI, just because we don't know what the market could hold in the future. Markets are unpredictable, and it is a publicly owned property. I'm all for a market rate, but I also want to make sure that it's a market rate that does not get close to a luxury rate, that we're able to ensure that this public property, you know, doesn't end up being another piece of luxury inventory.
And may I?
Yes, of course.
Without negotiating from the podium, I would recommend that potentially that AMI cap be for a portion of the workforce units potentially, just so that we make sure that the numbers pencil for the deal. But we will endeavor to negotiate that further and
Sure.
have that cap in place, whether it's 160 AMI, 180% AMI, whatever is the most feasible. We can certainly work with the developer on that.
Sure. And so I'm just excited that we're finally, most importantly, we have neighbors to this property that for years have been coming to us, begging the city to take care of its assets. And it's ironic to me because as a city government, we often go out and we give violations and we go after other property owners who don't properly maintain their assets. And here we have neighbors coming to us as commissioners, asking us to properly maintain our asset. And we're finally moving in a direction that we see the light at the end of the tunnel to bring new life and restoring safety and proper conditions to this beautiful city asset. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
So I know we have a motion and a second, so I won't belabor this, but I will say that there is a lot of concern. I share my colleague Rosen Gonzalez, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, concern about spot zoning. And Vice Mayor, when you and I were on the planning board, we'd had this conversation all the time, and we kept being told, it's not spot zoning, it's okay. So I hear that, and I understand, and I've been advocating for a master plan, or at least a conversation about how we're gonna deal with Washington and Lincoln. So I hear you loud and clear. On this particular instance, we've been kicking this around for so very long, it is time to figure this out. And to address some of the concerns about the height impact, the better and faster we can sort out the parking issues, the better it will be for the future of this project, because if we can lower the required height to make this all work by 2 or 3 stories, I don't know what the magic number is, I'm not an architect or an engineer, but a story, 2 stories, that then addresses some of the concerns about the height. And, you know, there are renderings in here that are starting points, but it is not, those are not designs that we are voting on today. And so I will urge for the developer and his team to know that there is pushback from a lot of folks. And so the more, the lower you can make it and the less overwhelming you can make it, even in your preliminary massing study, directional renderings, I know they are not the final designs, the better it will be for the conversation. And I also hear, you know, I'm a huge proponent for keeping the city lower rather than higher, and that we have traffic jams that are, you know, mind-boggling. But this building, this project, has nothing to do with our shameful lack of public transportation. And I don't want to change the goalposts on this project by saying that this can't go forward because we don't have sufficient public transportation. It's not fair. It's not an accurate reflection on the issues. And you're not wrong. We have shameful public transportation. That is a whole separate issue that we need to be tackling in a more robust way. And, you know, this is only our first year of this particular commission, so give us until at least the first quarter of next year to get that going, because it's a legitimate discussion, but it shouldn't be put on the shoulders of this. And if we are building a project that is deprioritizing parking, that means that those folks will not be contributing to the morass that is traffic congestion. And with that, I suggest we call a vote.
Yes, we do. Wayne, please unmute yourself.
The idea that housing will not create cars is Orwellian. The United States has added tens of millions of cars over the last decade alone, and Miami-Dade County is no different. In fact, it's increased 28% in the last decade, the number of registered vehicles. So I just want you to stay away from Orwellian discussions about the lack of cars being inundated in Miami Beach with new construction, you know, because that's not helpful. What's more, the idea that removing, I believe market rate is the right way to go. It adds revenue to the city. And you're not going to build affordable housing with $500 rent in this city. We don't have enough tax dollars. We don't have enough, and you're lying to the public when you discuss these things without reality. And the last point I want to make is that you keep moving the post, so that what you're doing is incentivizing developers or landowners not to update their property, because each year you add FAR. You have new discussions with higher rising discussions of 200 feet, 150 feet, 400 feet, 600 feet. And so they have no intention of updating their property because they think 5 years from now they're going to get even more money. So the process and the discussion is against what your goals are. So please be honest with yourself, be honest with the system, and try to figure out the best way for Miami Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne, for your comments. Input's always welcome. I will say, unfortunately, in this case, the property owner was the city, and we were the ones that let this over the past 10 to 15 years fall into derelict repair, where we had to essentially go begging to the private sector, because let's think about the reality. Let's say we vote this down and it says no. What are we going to do? Where's $30 million come from? We owe $30 million for a new fire station and the upkeep of the South Shores Community Center. We need millions and millions of dollars for other capital projects. I don't think anybody wants to be in a position where we need to rely on a private sector partner, but because the city essentially neglected this property for so long, we forced our own. Thank God it's not demolition by neglect, but restoration by neglect.
And Mr. Chair, we used to have in our community, before there was this massive gentrification, we used to have a workforce that lived in Miami Beach. And ever since we've had this great gentrification, I'm going to start calling it the great gentrification. Ever since we had the great gentrification, we've seen what was in Miami Beach, what we didn't see before, all these extra cars. Miami Beach didn't always have this problem, and I've seen it over time, over my years of living here in Miami Beach. Every year it gets worse and worse, and the constant is, as it becomes more and more unaffordable to live in Miami Beach, you have more people having to commute to Westchester, to Sweetwater, to Hialeah, to Kendall, to other parts, to other suburbs, where it's more affordable for them to live because they've been priced out of our city because of a lack of inventory. And to the last point about, property owners not fixing up their properties because they think that, years down the road, there's going to be, better policies. I just want to make it clear, whatever policies this commission has been discussing as a body, they don't encourage property owners not to fix their properties because they're tied to a sunset. We're not giving properties FAR or any zoning rights. We're giving them incentives to fix up their properties, to get rid of nuisances, and that's the only way that they can get anything that we're offering them. And if they don't do it, I think it's 3 years. If they don't do it within 3 years or so, the incentive disappears. And in essence, we are encouraging the property owners to fix up their properties before these laws that we're putting into place disappear because they're all temporary in nature. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Wait, can I just say one thing? You know what drives me crazy is that I firmly believe that the majority of our constituents who live here right now, we need to serve them and not serve future constituents that don't live here. I left City Hall yesterday at 5 o'clock and I didn't get home until 5:40 and it's September. Okay, and they have not finished all of the oceanfront hotels, the Aman, the Bulgari, the Rosewood, the Shore Club, the 800-room convention center hotel. I mean, the 10 buildings in North Beach. Are you guys not? This is crazy, Bill. And you know why? Because if I start adding up spot zoning, here, let's give them a 7 FAR, here, let's give them this. You have no idea the impact of what we're doing. Zero. And, and we have to start really discussing this. For those of you who live in South Beach and you don't need a car, that's fine. It's great. That life is rich. For those of us who actually need a car and we have no reliable mass transit, the idea of adding more density to what is now in September, we cannot get across 41st Street. We can't get home. Okay, we're not going to be able to get to the hospital. We're going to start having there's going to be serious. I would like us to serve, and this is what Mayor Burkett from Surfside said, who's a property owner here. He said, you guys need to start serving the residents who live here instead of building for those who might come. And that's really where we are. We're not serving our constituents with this. We're serving a special. And by the way, when the surrounding neighbors who all got together to say, yes, we want to save Collins Park, when they see how big that is and they're going to lose all of their privacy, they're going to be cast into a shadow because you're increasing the height on this building, they are not going to be such happy campers. So, I mean, definitely, before you approve this, there should be some notice, because when I looked at the pictures and I saw the surrounding buildings, I was like, that's shocking. By the way, when you do that to somebody, they can't even get cell phone service anymore in their house. Like when I had this concrete structure, I just can't even get a phone call. Anybody who calls me at home knows that my calls drop because I had a cement wall, built next to me. So I don't know. I mean, I would love to have a conversation with the building next door, the residents, not just the members of Collins Park Neighborhood Association, which are wonderful, but all the surrounding buildings, and explain to them, hey, we're not just renovating the Barclay. You're not getting, like a 3 or 4 story structure. You're getting, how tall is it?
It's 100 feet, and we have the support of the
100
neighboring
feet.
building.
It's 100 feet, and well, you know,
Yeah,
well, that's great.
It's the same height as the convention center across the street, and it's much lower than the Octagon, which
That's
is
great. I'm just
about
not
a block
into
away.
this. I'm
and
just
we
not.
have the support of our neighboring building,
We didn't actually. I don't. Did you call on him? Because I was in the middle of my.
Mansfield Park. Yeah, they're
Well,
supportive.
anyway, I just don't believe in philosophically in this spot zoning. Actually, it's kind of illegal to spot zone, and people aren't supposed to do it on purpose because it doesn't make sense. So, that's why I'm upset. Now, if you came back and said, I'm not going to do an FAR increase, maybe you give us a little bit of less money, I would rather see something like that. And I think Commissioner Bott said something like that too. I know, Ray, you just want to build it bigger, better, build, another tall building. I could tell you that our residents don't want us to build.
You let Wayne talk. Can I please talk?
I represent people that live in the city too. Okay. And you know who I also represent? Mm-hmm. Single mothers that can't afford their rent anymore. What have we done in the past 10 years in this city to help housing affordability? We haven't done a single thing, not one single thing. We have built hotel, nightclub, hotel. The amount of children in my daughter's school whose families have had to move out of our city. Do you know how many little children my daughter has hugged because their friends can't live in our city anymore? Those people I represent too. And those are the people that I care about as well, right? When we talk about Washington, I don't know any of the developers or landowners there. I want to give a dignified living to families that are working in this school. My daughter's mother, for the personal problems we had, is the hardest working person I know. The hardest working. She works in 105 degrees from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. at night, serving drinks at a hotel to give her young daughter dignified living as a single mother. And she can't afford to live in our city. She cannot afford to live in our city because we want to say no. If you don't own, if you're not a millionaire, you don't belong here. And that is wrong.
If she needs a realtor, I can show her an affordable unit somewhere in South Beach. It might not be the exact size she wants, but we have a large stock of affordable apartments.
Yeah,
And I could show you right now from
700 square foot units for
from
$3,000.
18 I know, I've
Really?
seen from 1,800 square feet, but that's what a lot of these new buildings are showing. I mean, like when you look at the units for $800,000 in North Beach that are being built $800,000 for like 550 square feet, I'm sorry. They are no bigger than the units in South Beach. So that argument also doesn't hold a candle because these units that we're building, by the way, the only
Okay,
affordable,
you know what?
the only workforce, I had the microphone and I do not like being interrupted because I have not been interrupting you. Okay? The new units that are being built are not much larger than the older units that we currently have. And by the way, the only workforce housing that we have been able to build, the only reason that we were able to build the workforce housing in Collins Park is because not only did we give them the land, but we subsidized them with an additional $10 million. Okay, and that was to have normal size unit. The actual property market is not going to be much, the unit sizes are not going to be much bigger than what our workforce housing currently is. So we can complain about this, but the newer construction is going to be smaller and more expensive. And by the way, the older construction is probably more affordable because these newer constructions will be $2,500,
You know what?
$3,000. They're going to be expensive. And wait. And let's not talk about single moms. We're all in the same boat. I'm again, a single mom. And here's what I would tell you. It is not easy. Insurance costs are going up. My homeowner's insurance increased by 60%. But you know what that also means? It means that we're not getting insured on Miami Beach. There's issues at the state level that are going to make it very difficult and drive rents up. So even if they build this, because to insure it will be so expensive, to have any kind, if it's a condo, to have reserves will be expensive. If it's a rental unit, it is going to be so expensive for the property owners to have some kind of insurance that this is somewhat of a pipe dream. Okay, unless you give them so much density that then we won't even be able to get around the city. So come on, you have to be realistic about what we're going through. It's not our fault. It's not our fault that the condo laws changed. It's not our fault that insurance is going to continue to rise to a point where it's not going to be affordable here.
Well, I will
okay?
return the
But
mic
I'm not
over to you.
gonna, I'm not gonna vote to overbuild
You don't have to. No one's
based on
asking
this
you to.
argument. I'm not.
Don't.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not. You guys want to overbuild, but
We don't
then
wanna overbuild.
I don't want to hear one traffic complaint. One, because I'm going to aggregate every single little spot zoning that happens. And as soon as people in season start to complain about the traffic, and I couldn't even get across 41st Street right now, I'm going to be like, look at this. Look, I'm going to have a list, and I'm just going to flash it for everyone to see.
So
Because
I've
then you
been-
can't complain about traffic. And by the way, we all know, because we all went out to FDOT, and what the lady at FDOT told us was, we have no capacity and we have no solutions. So she did say to me, keep your density in check.
So I've been commissioner for 5 months and haven't improved anything. So our traffic apparently is very bad. I don't know where all this new construction is that people say have stressed our traffic. I'd love a map of all these new homes, but I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you either. I'll turn the floor over to Ray for public
Okay,
comment.
thank you. First off, I'm going to go back to something that Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez said. The reason we have workforce housing that is being built in Collins Park right now is that lot and the lot where the garage is was zoned for 50 feet. The original garage that was done by Zaha Hadid was 50 feet tall. When that went away, I said, why can't we change the zoning to 75 feet that's right across the street and built the garage? So we built the garage, and now all of a sudden you had a lot left over that you could build the workforce housing. We raised the height there to do that. Now, the only reason we're raising the height here and we're upzoning is because you want $6 million up front. $6 million when you have an annual budget of almost $1 billion, you don't need that $6 million. If you want to keep the height to the 75 feet and you want to keep the FAR the way it is, be willing to accept less money, let them build what they want, and the shovel goes in the ground faster. Right now, the way it's going right now, I don't believe that they're going to get the 5-7 votes and the 6-7 votes they're going to need to increase the FAR and the height increase, and you guys, this is all bogus. So why don't you break down as a commission and as a finance committee and figure out what you really want, what you're willing to agree to, and do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I believe that there's a motion on the table, correct?
If I could just ask, Raquel, is the proper place, is this to return to commission, or is the next place to come back here for final approval of term sheet, or that's what this is?
So we would request to bring a term sheet to the city commission based on the terms discussed today and found in the memorandum. Ultimately, once there's a negotiated lease, it would come back to the FERC, but that's after the commission gives authorization for that
Okay,
negotiation.
so hey, May, I think it would sound like that the resolution would be to return to commission with a favorable recommendation as the item is, as presented, with the final term sheet, but to include, an initial deposit and explore an AMI cap. And for the item to return to, return to FERC.
Right. The request is for the terms discussed today.
As presented.
To be presented to the city commission for approval and authorization to go into negotiations of the lease agreement.
And then the item to
And
return to
development
FERC at a later date at the appropriate time, so that the item, we don't need a new referral.
Right.
So it's an audit referral.
And it's already, this item was already referred by the commission, or this project was referred by the commission to the land use committee as well as to the planning board for any necessary waivers or amendments. So you will likely see this project travel to other boards.
All right. Second. Do we need to call a vote or we done?
Yes, actually, yes. There was a motion and a second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Yes.
All in favor? Commissioner Bott? No. Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez?
If you're willing to do what Ray says, I'm gonna vote yes, but come back with lesser money and no FAR increase. And then maybe we'll have a deal.
That's not a motion. That's not a
Wait, I'm
Motion, then I have to
sorry. Hold
vote
up,
this
hold
down.
up.
Then I
Wait,
have to
wait,
vote it
wait,
down,
wait,
and
wait.
it's probably slated for failure because of the need for spot zoning. So I agree with Ray, and something realistic should be put on the table. I'm a no for right now,
Okay.
and maybe in the future.
I just want the record to reflect
I want the record to reflect. We asked for this upfront payment, Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, Madam Vice Chair. We asked for this upfront payment because at an earlier Finance Committee, you were upset at the lack of payment that the city was receiving. And you were saying that the city was not leasing, you were saying that the city was selling a city asset for almost no money. And we asked the administration to go back and to negotiate and to bring back a deal that actually gave us money. And so I joined you and I supported you when you said that, because there is a public trust issue when you say, okay, we're leveraging now the public asset, we're not getting any money up front. It does create this optic that we're giving away public land at a very low rate. This was because you requested it and I supported you. And so I have an issue when now we go back and we say, no. So.
Well, I mean, but look at the height and the FAR. Did you see it? It's big. It's really big. It's too big for me. It's just too big. I'm not doing that. It's out of scale.
If I may offer some clarification,
You can't get the 6 million, and we can't really. We already voted. I mean, we can't get the 6 million.
I'll let the conversation continue, but I'll adjourn the meeting.
Yes.
okay.
I mean,
Thank you.
don't get mad at me. There was no FAR increase.